Welcome everyone to our 4 o'clock session of our June 11th City Council meeting. I hope everyone's been enjoying the warm weather that we've been having so far. And for those of you who are joining us for this first session, if you'd like to follow along with the City Council, we do have agendas out in the front. We have them both in Spanish and in English. Feel free to pick whatever works for you. And we won't have translation services until the 6:30 session, so we do apologize for that. But let's start with a roll call. Mr. City Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Kaufman Gomez,
Present.
Garcia,
Here.
Gonzalez,
Present.
Hernandez, Hurst,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Estrada.
Here. Thank you. We will move on to item 2 on the agenda. These are just information items only, reports for City Council. Hopefully my colleagues had a chance to take a look at them. If you do have any questions on any item on there, please feel free to reach out to city staff and we will get you any answer you're looking for. We'll move on to item 3A, reports. And reports to council do not require any action on our part. They're just, again, for information only. And we will begin with Measure G, a report by Revenue Oversight Committee Chair Rick Dana, as required by the Municipal Code, Section 3-6.1102. You have 10 minutes for your information, and whenever you're ready, we welcome you.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I was told to be brief, so I didn't prepare for 10 minutes, but that's okay.
Whatever you have is
brevity's
good.
never been my specialty. Maybe I'll keep going. So first off, thank you for inviting me. I am the chair this year of Measure G, and what I'm going to be presenting to you by statute is once every year, the chairperson is to come to you and present their oversight review and audit of the budget and how Measure G is being implemented according to the city. First off, we go through the entire process, beginning with an audit, okay? And the audit comes through, it's not us. An audit will come through and make sure that Measure G is living by the provisions for which it was written. So first off, Measure G, as we all know, is a 0.5% sales tax. But how that money was to be spent was very important because the tax required 2/3 of our voters to vote for it, meaning that it had to go specifically to our public safety, which in this case was 60% to the police and 40% to fire. And the reason for that is, unfortunately, as much as the city loves you, they don't trust you with their money. So the public really believed in this program because the money went specifically for what they believed. So what might happen? Well, what might happen is the city might lower their budget for police and fire and use the Measure G money to fund other projects. Well, the voters didn't want that. That's why they chose to have an oversight committee so that people like myself and other citizens, and we rotate, we have different chairs, to make sure that the city is living by Measure G's requirements. And just to mention a few that the auditor will go through. Number one, we want to make sure that we're not spending Measure G money on the fireman's ball. Okay, I think that's a fair assessment. That's the way it was decided. That's the way it works. Has to be for public safety and so on. There needs to be a 2% cap on administrative costs. 10% needs to be in reserve. Those things are required. 60-40 is the split that it would go through. So all of those things need to be checked out, make sure they're correct. In this particular case, the auditing for 2017 and 2018 said they were absolutely right on. The committee reviewed all of the numbers and agreed with them completely. So what does that mean? I'm here to tell you, first off and foremost, the city of Watsonville is fully in compliance with the Measure G requirements, as asserted by the committee and a separate third-party auditor. What does this really mean for what's being done for the city? Well, again, this has to be for public safety. So give you some idea what your police department has been doing. Back in 2014, we were only open 4 days a week, going through financial problems. Our police cars were almost classics, really. They were getting so old. We had one of the oldest police car vehicle groups around. Why? Well, we're missing the boardwalk. We don't really have any fancy hotels. Ever since I was a kid, it's always been that way. This has not been a city of a lot of money. But unfortunately, public safety is not something that the community wanted to mess around with. So that's why we have this. The first thing that, especially Chief Honda and Chief Beretta, which is sad that we had lost him, they did such a good job with the money. But the first thing is our vehicles. I mean, I really believe the police officers would say a prayer at night before they got into the vehicle to hope that the damn thing got them everywhere it was supposed to get them in the next shift. The fire truck's the same thing. They get on those vehicles hoping to hell they can get to the person that might be dying. So this is an investment for our community, and it's probably the most important thing that you do sitting in those seats is to make sure you provide Watsonville residents with public safety. One thing that I really like what they've done is after they replaced those vehicles and the cars and so on, they got personnel. And that was a great move. Why? Because we didn't have enough firemen. We couldn't afford it. So what we would do is we would have everybody do overtime. Oh, do overtime. Ah, what the hell? Why don't you work 80 hours a week? Make a hell of a lot of money. But the problem is we were paying a lot of money. It wasn't efficient for us to do that. Same with the police department. We just don't have enough officers. It's not easy to get officers in the first place. We don't pay as much money as some of the surrounding communities. So the least we could do is probably get them a good car and things that work. The third part that I really like is that they've gone out and done preventative stuff that's not necessarily done unless the funds are there. What does that mean? Well, that means for the fire department that you actually go do inspections. You might find a few things out there that you haven't been doing for a few years that may actually improve our fire prevention programs. And it's the same with the police. In fact, again, I'd like to make a compliment to Chief Honda. It is amazing what he's doing with this money. I'll tell you how he's implementing policy that benefits the community as well as using our money smartly. One thing that we don't have very much of in the community is women police officers. I notice we have a lot of women counselors or folks on the council, which is great, but we don't have police women, not to the level that we should. So what is Chief Honda going to do? He's going to take part of his investment and go into the women's locker room, which honestly, if you've ever been in there, it's about the size of a small walk-in closet. It's pretty small for a couple young women to be able to get into their uniforms in and out. So he's spending the money on improving that and going after women officers. So he's using Measure G money to promote positive policies for our community, including women and preventative programs for our kids and for gangs. That's what he's doing with the money. So I'm very proud of it. And also I'd like to say, too, that these aren't like a bunch of drunk sailors out there that we filled their pockets with money, okay? Chief Honda actually went over to UCSC and bought a bunch of used vehicles. They're beautiful. They don't use them because they have like 36,000 miles on them. Oh, we got so much money with the university system, we can get rid of these cars. Well, we'd love to have them in Watsonville. They're all over. I like that. I like that my city officials will take that dollar and really make sure that they do the best they can with that buck. Appreciate that. After seeing everything that goes on in government nowadays, to actually see that occur is really, and for us, very fortunate to have these type of people working for our city. I will say that. And in conclusion, I'd like to say that I think that the program has been a big winner for us, and we're on the last of this program. As many of you know, it sunsets soon. And once it sunsets, we go back to that probably closer to the maintenance figure that we had originally. I'll give you an example. Back when this program was started, I think the police were at 12 million. I think last year they spent close to 16 or 17. So if we want to, when this program ends, and it will end in a couple of years, it sunsets, I believe the community is going to have to face a very, very difficult decision. Do you want to pay an extra 3 cents on your Big Mac? Or do you want to have services that will be decreased so that you can have the 3 cents saved on the 0.5% tax? And that'll be the question the community has to answer coming up. Thank you. If you have any questions, I probably can't answer them, but I'll do my best.
Thank you for your report. Any questions or comments from council? Yes, Councilwoman Parker.
That was lively, Rick. Thank you. I just wanted to say, as a former vice chair of the Measure G committee, there's just so much information coming in, and I want to thank you for chairing the committee this year and guiding it. And you're doing a lot of stuff because, as you said, it sunsets in a few years. You guys have had a lot of good community talks, haven't you?
We have, and I think as a group, generally, those that are on the front lines think it's imperative that we reintroduce the Measure G for, many people believe, not setting a date on it. That's how important it is to the community. That's what we feel as a committee.
Yeah. How long has Measure G been in effect?
Since 14, this is
Five?
fourth report? Fifth year.
Yeah. Okay, fifth year. And every year, you're right, every year they've been in compliance, and every year they've built on what they've had in the past. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for bringing it to
Well,
us.
I took your place. You were supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Garcia?
That was a great report, so thank you for that. You mentioned several times about the sunset of Measure G and the choices that our community is going to have to make. I'm wondering, so for example, what will it mean not to have Measure G? So for example, Measure G funds the Caminos hacia el Éxito. Okay. What would it mean then for that program not to have Measure G?
So this year we received, just to give you an example, we received close to $4 million was received through Measure G. So the elimination of Measure G would be the elimination of that money. So what happens is everything goes backwards, right? We start to fix the outside of our home up and we fix this up. Eventually we don't have any money and we just pay the bills. And that's what happens. Right now we have a little bit extra. So we're working in preventative measures. We're replacing cars. As that money, that $4 million dries up from Measure G, then what's going to happen is those type of services will be either cut or we'll have to go primary services mainly. So those types of issues would be, I would never say that they would be eliminated. That is a great program, by the way. I was going to mention it. Chief Honda is very positive. If we can get half of these kids not to go into gangs, half of them not to end up in the system, those kind of programs save us money. But if there's not extra money, those will be the first programs that will be cut. Personnel will also be a problem too. There are people hired strictly on Measure G. So if those funds aren't there, we will lose, I would assume, a certain amount of officers and fire people originally, and then those programs would also be in jeopardy.
Councilman Gonzalez.
I just want to say I want to thank you for serving your community, and you did exceed the 10 minutes, so you did a good job.
Brevity has never been my highlight.
No, but I do want to thank you for your service.
Thank you
and
very
every-
much. I
everything
enjoy
you do
it.
for the community.
Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your presentation. We will, if my council will permit, we will move item 4B. We'll push it back a little bit. Our presenter's still not here. So, oh, we're ready? Okay, so we can go with item 3B. Okay, perfect. Okay, so whenever we're ready.
We would like to shift the order. One of the presenters for item 3B hasn't arrived yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could step up and do 4A, which is
Perfect.
the city's Measure G project, Measure D projects.
Excellent. So is that okay with my colleagues? Okay, we will move up item 4A, new business, consideration of approval of project list for transportation projects funded by Measure D. And whenever you're ready, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Estrada, members of the council. My name is Murray Fonts. I am a principal engineer in the Public Works and Utilities Department. And I'm pleased to share with you the proposed projects for this year's Measure D expenditure plan. In 2016, Santa Cruz County voters approved Measure D, a 1/2 cent sales tax that funds transportation projects for 30 years. The measure allocates a portion of the funding to Watsonville annually and requires that each year Council approve a 5-year expenditure plan. This year's project list is different from last year's as adjustments were made to allow for new funding sources and the changing needs of the city. A quick review of the Measure D projects that are going on this year include bicycle safety improvements, which has involved safety training at elementary schools as well as hosting or contributing toward an Earn a Bike program at Pajaro Valley High School. On the Green Valley Road project, we've hired a consultant to prepare construction plans. On the Lee Road Trail project, consultants have been hired to assist with design and environmental documentation. Work has been done on the Maintain Roads category to assist in funding reconstruction projects on Airport and Green Valley Road. In the area of maintaining trails, we've hired a consultant to assist us in preparing designs for repairing specific segments of the trail. Pedestrian and traffic safety improvements have included installing flashing beacons at Beach Street near the Granite Construction property, installing speed humps with the Arthur Avenue neighborhood traffic plan, and providing traffic safety banners and crossing flags throughout the city. This is the proposed expenditure plan for the next 5 years. One project that's listed here is the Main Street improvements. This project had, the downtown revitalization. This project has received funding in the past, but we're choosing not to put any funding into the 5-year plan and await the completion of the Complete Streets plan when a better course of action has been mapped out. Some of the projects that are being funded in the coming year and are on this Measure D plan include this project on Freedom Boulevard, which would extend from Alta Vista to Green Valley Road. It involves repair and resurface of damaged roadway and bike lanes, replacing damaged sidewalks, adding pedestrian facilities where none exist. It includes design, environmental documentation, and construction. This is a two-phase project. We're currently working to identify areas in this corridor where minor repairs can be done and striping can be added to improve pedestrian and bicycle facilities. And then in a couple of years, we would hire a designer to put together a set of construction plans to do the full improvements, with the actual work to be done beginning in the year 22-23, fiscal year 2022-23. The total cost is anticipated at $2.6 million. Along with Measure D funds, there would be gas tax, SB1 funds, and we'll need to secure additional funding for the ultimate construction in that area. Another project is on Green Valley Road between Freedom Boulevard and the city limits. It involves reconstruction of the roadway, removal and replacement of non-compliant driveways and curb ramps, restriping, and providing bike lanes where none exist. The design has been going on this year. Construction would take place in the coming fiscal year. The cost is estimated at $2.2 million. Along with Measure D, there'd be gas tax and SB1 funds. Design will continue on the Lee Road Trail. This slide shows that it extends on Lee Road from the railroad crossing across Struve Slough all the way to Harkin Slough Road, and then turn back toward town and link up with the entrance to Pajaro Valley High School. This is a design project, design and environmental documentation. We anticipate that it'll be done in 2 years. The total cost is $495,000. The city has also secured of that $495,000, $330,000 is through a grant from the Coastal Conservancy. We anticipate allowing 2 years to secure funding. Should the funding come in that time, we would hope to start construction in 2023. There's also $645,000 set aside in that year for construction. We don't think we can build the trail for that much, but that would be seed money that we could use for future grants. Funding in the plan includes maintaining roads. In the coming fiscal year, we anticipate doing work on Airport Boulevard just west of Freedom Boulevard. Some of our most famous potholes are in that area, so we hope to move them along. And then the following year to do the 3-layer coating system that the city's done in the past as a means of preserving the road surface and extending the service life of roads throughout the city. This would also include SB1 and gas tax funding. The city anticipates doing a number of pedestrian and traffic safety improvements in the coming year, including more flashing beacons at various locations, as well as work on neighborhood traffic plans in the Roach Road, Clifford Avenue, Rogers Avenue, and Santa Clara Street areas. Two improvement projects that involve bicycle and pedestrian facilities include ongoing bicycle safety improvements, which would involve continued training and working with schools on education programs, as well as hiring or beginning work on maintaining some of the trails in the existing slough network. And then two projects that are on the list but will not begin in this next year. They're scheduled for the future. One involves work on Freedom Boulevard between Alta Vista and Green Valley Road. This is a reconstruction project with upgrades to existing pedestrian facilities, installation of high visibility crosswalks, improving the existing bus shelter, installing a new traffic signal at Sydney Avenue. The work includes design, environmental documentation, and construction. Design would begin in the year 2020 with construction the following year. In an ideal world, this will happen sequentially and the additional improvements to Freedom Boulevard would follow it, the ones that I mentioned earlier. The total cost of this project is estimated at $3.1 million. We've secured STIP funding in the amount of just over $1.5 million to help pay for this. We'll supplement it with gas tax and SB1 funds. And then the other project shown on this slide is the Pajaro Valley High School Connector Trail, an 8-foot wide pedestrian and bike trail that would link Airport Boulevard to Harkins Slough Road and allow access to Pajaro Valley High School. We plan to begin design in 2022 with construction the following year. The total cost would be $750,000. The major challenge with this project is acquiring the needed right-of-way. That concludes my presentation. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution approving this list of transportation projects to be funded by Measure D.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Councilwoman Garcia, and then we'll go with Councilman Hurst.
In terms of the list that where we're going to move forward, I'm wondering two parts. One, are any of these new improvements dependent on completion of the ones that we decided for last year?
Do you have any projects from last year that you're thinking of?
Well, I'm thinking like you're talking about bicycle safety. There's something last year on that also. And so I'm wondering, does whatever it was that we said we were going to do, well, one, by when are we going to complete it? Two, do we still need more money for those projects? Not just that one, but any of the other ones.
Here's a list of the current Measure D projects. Under the bicycle safety improvements category, we have contracts with a couple of nonprofits to assist with safety training. Those contracts will expire at the end of this year. Any future agreements that we might enter into with them would begin with the next fiscal year, so they're not contingent upon each other.
Okay, and for all, there's 6, and so in terms of the completion of each one of these, is there a timeline, or have we completed them all?
If I could go through the list, on the Green Valley Road reconstruction project, we're working on the design. So once the design is complete, then we'd move into the construction.
Will we need any additional funding for that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions from Councilman Hurst?
I want to thank Mr. Fonts for his work on this particular extension of our roadways and all the projects. And my question is, just for the public record, can you share with us what the total cost of this is going to be?
The total of all the Measure D funding?
Yes, sir. Our portion.
You caught me without my calculator, council member. In the coming fiscal year, we estimate that we'll expend $1.7 million in Measure D funds.
Thank you very much. I think that's an important fact for the taxpayers and the ratepayers to know here. And again, thank you for your always advising the commissioner members from the Watsonville perspective and assisting the RTC in moving forward too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez.
Yes, as part of the RTC, we've had these conversations about where we're spending the money and the priorities. And when it comes to this Lee Road project, which would be very beneficial for the school, probably get a lot of activity upon completion, what would it take to accelerate this project? I believe that we're told that we're 1 million short right now, but what would it take for us to be able to move this project up the list on a priority?
The Lee Road project that I've reported on in Measure D is not the same as the Lee Road project on the rail trail. And that's what you're referring to. We do have a segment of the rail trail that we're building. We anticipate building a portion of that trail this fall, and then in 2 years to build the balance. We project that the balance to be built in 2 years will cost $3.8 million. We've secured $2.8 million in Measure D funds that are being allocated to us by the Regional Transportation Commission. Outside of this, I've forgotten this neighborhood projects pot. To accelerate that project, we would need to secure permits from the California Public Utilities Commission for the rail crossings. That's what's forced the delay. And I don't have a magic wand.
So right now, the delay, let's say we are successful with getting the CPUC to approve that. CPUC, right?
Yes.
Has that been started to place that request for that permit?
We will need 4 permits. There's 4 different crossings. We've submitted 2 of them to date. 2 of them involve new crossings, and a new crossing, they've told us, is 1.5 years out because it needs to go before a law judge. Those we haven't submitted yet.
And we're the supportive funding that we're getting, that how are we best leveraging our Measure D money for this overall project? I know we have SB1, we have the gas tax, which is the SB1, we have the Measure D. What other grant opportunities and other nonprofit or other funding sources do we have that we can use to leverage this to bring this project as accelerated in any way possible?
There are 2 funding sources that we could apply for. One of them is the Active Transportation Program, ATP. We're using it to fund a portion of the trail. Another is Proposition 68. There are various programs through Prop 68 that are being released at this time.
And what are we getting with the county Board of Supervisors and any encouragement from their part of the Measure D funds to help put this on their priority list to allocate towards this project?
we haven't received any support from the Santa Cruz County Public Works Department and their Measure D funds. The support we're getting is through the Regional Transportation Commission.
Okay, so I'd like us to, when this comes back, I'd like us to see what we can do about moving that forward a little quicker and make those requests and see about getting some of those other sources so we can move this to a top on the end of the list.
Councilman Hernandez, questions?
It's not much of a question, more of a comment. I just want to thank the staff for programming all these projects through both Murray and Maria. You know, they're not only just transportation projects, but I think they're going to make the city a much better place to live in. So thank you guys. Do we need a motion for this?
Not yet.
Oh,
Not
okay.
until we open it up to the public. Any other questions, clarifying questions from council? Okay, seeing none, I will now open it up for public input on this topic. If you wish to address the council on this item, please feel free to come up to the mic and share your views. Okay, seeing none, we will now close public input, and I will ask for a motion from council and a second.
I'll move the motion with the direction to have staff come back with us on those other grant possibilities, the county, the Prop 68, to see if we can accelerate the Lee Road project.
And the ATP.
Correct. That is being one of the funding sources.
I'll second.
I'll second it too.
Cool.
I'll third it.
That works for me.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the item before we vote? Okay. Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor made by Councilmember Kaufman Gomez to approve staff recommendation with the added bonus of hopefully accelerating the prospects of other grant opportunities for some of these projects. And we have a second by Councilman Gonzalez. Mr. City Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Kaufman Gomez,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Estrada.
Yes, motion passes. And I'd like to give Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez just last words on the topic.
Yes, I just think that this is a very viable project. The PV High School has been stranded out there for long enough. They're doing a lot with their particular campus, and I think that this will be beneficial to get a lot more of our pedestrians out there on these trails and bring them back as part of this community. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some of that and a lot of activity out there as well. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
And thank you, Councilmember Kaufman Gomez and Mayor, for that comment. I do want to also add that in the course of our team's work, we've got one of the best teams in the county in terms of pursuing those grant opportunities. Yep. We agree that the Lee Road Trail is an excellent opportunity. And throughout our conversations, both with the county Department of Public Works as well as RTC and other regional partners, as we always do, we'll pursue opportunities to move the project forward.
Whatever we need from the support for the CPUC on the requests that need to be authorized by them for those passages, whatever you need on that, we're here.
Great, thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else? Fantastic. So thank you again. We appreciate the report and your efforts on this. And we will jump back to item 3B, and we have a presentation by the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission, RTC, on Regional Measure D projects. Whenever you are ready, we welcome you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Rachel Marconi. I've been before you before to talk a little bit about some of the regional projects, but I'm excited today to have with us our semi-new executive director, Guy Preston, who will be available to answer some of the tough questions when you guys decide to get to the grilling section of the presentation. I'm just kidding. Hopefully not. So as folks may or may not recall, voters of Santa Cruz County did approve Measure D G back in 2016. It's a half-cent sales tax generated explicitly for transportation purposes, and as just presented by your staff, each year all the recipient agencies are required to prepare some 5-year plans looking at how we intend to spend the public's funds over the next 5 years, and to give everyone an opportunity to weigh in on how funds are being spent beyond what was already spelt out in the expenditure plan for the voter-approved sales tax measure. I just want to really commend your staff. They do so much with very limited funds sometimes and really stretch it out. They have been outstanding at leveraging these Measure D funds to go after different statewide grants. They've been also, they're just great folks to work with, so I really appreciate that. So as previously mentioned, this is a half-cent sales tax. It went into effect in April of 2017. It generates about $20 million a year. The city of Watsonville's share of that is about $900,000 a year on average. And it funds the priorities that were identified by the community. Building Measure D took a lot of stakeholder meetings, a lot of public input, and we looked at what the priorities for the entire county were, and came forward with something that could also succeed at getting 2/3 of voters to say yes. Another thing that all agencies are struggling with sometimes is there are occasions where we might have certain funds that we think are really only available to our county, our region, our cities, our different departments. But sometimes the state legislature has authority over that funding, and sometimes all of a sudden the money disappears. And so it was really exciting to have voters locally say, we want to make sure we have kind of a firewall around some funds that can only be spent in our county. Similar to your Measure G Oversight Committee, Measure D also has a citizen oversight committee. They just went through stacks and stacks of audits, and pleased to report that everyone had a clean and squeaky audit in fiscal year 17-18, and it looks like everyone is expeditiously spending their funds this past fiscal year, and so we're looking forward to reviewing the audits for how folks have spent the funds over the last 12 months in the coming future. So what's included in Measure D? I'm just going to give you a general overview of Measure D today, and talk about a few of the regional projects, and then we'll be available to answer some questions that you might have. So Measure D, the bulk of the funds, 30% of the funds, are allocated by formula to cities and the county in Santa Cruz County. 20% of the funds go to Santa Cruz Metro and Liftline, Community Bridges Liftline for paratransit and other transit services focused on seniors and people with disabilities. 25% of the funds are designated for highway corridor projects and commuter programs. 8% of the funds are designated for projects on the rail corridor that are focused on rail needs, as well as analysis of what to do with that rail corridor in the future. And then 17% of the funds are designated for an active transportation category, which is focused on the Monterey Bay Sanctuary Scenic Trail or rail trail. So within the highway bucket, so to speak, or category, we have some auxiliary lanes on Highway 1 to help ease some of the congestion out there and improve traffic flow. We have some bicycle and pedestrian overcrossings over the highway. There is the Freeway Service Patrol Program, which is a roving tow truck that's out there in case someone stalls out, runs out of gas, drops a mattress off the back of their car, whatever it might be that typically would just completely stop traffic. They're there to get those folks off the road as quickly and safely as possible so the rest of traffic can keep moving forward. We also fund some additional CHP, California Highway Patrol enforcement on Highway 17, which helps slow folks down and reduce some of the terrible collisions that have happened on Highway 17. And then we also have funding for, knowing that major capital projects take a long time, we have some funding in there for what are called transportation demand management and traveler assistance programs, helping folks find the right bus to take, form carpools and van pools, and do other programs to help folks maybe choose something other than driving their car by themselves and sitting in traffic. It looks like some of our hidden slides are not hidden, but I'll just zoom through those really quickly. So on Highway 1, we do have 2 auxiliary lanes that are currently in process, and we anticipate going to construction within the next 5 years. The first one is between 41st Avenue and SoCal Drive Avenue, and this extends the auxiliary lanes that started out at Highway 17 and went to Morrissey, and then went from Morrissey to SoCal, and we're just moving our way south. And so this project also includes a new bicycle and pedestrian bridge that would connect to Dominican Hospital Complex with a lot of residential areas on the coastal side of the highway that are currently forced to walk through a sometimes confusing intersection of kind of the 7th Avenue to Dominican Hospital area of SoCal. Construction is expected to begin in 2020, so we're just around the corner. We're in final design right now on that project, and we will be using Measure D funds to leverage other grants. So this next slide just kind of shows you the bridge design for bicycle and pedestrians over the highway. It's a horseshoe of sorts so that the slopes are adjusted so anyone can use this facility to get over the highway. And we did finish environmental review at the end of last year. And as I mentioned before, we're fully into the design phase and expect to go to construction by the end of 2020. The other auxiliary lane that we've started environmental review on is between State Park Drive and Bay Porter. This, again, is one of the most heavily congested sections of Highway 1, and it will improve the operations, give folks a little bit longer time period to merge onto the highway. It improves the overcrossing at Capitola Avenue, and we are again using Measure D to leverage other grants on this, and we expect it to be ready for construction by 2022. And this is just a little picture of that area now. So we do have some, bridges there that are going to have to be widened and replaced in order to fit that auxiliary lane in there. On the Coastal Trail project, that's 17% of the regional Measure D funds. That's for the Monterey Bay Sanctuary Scenic Trail or Rail Trail. We are using Measure D funds over the next 5 years for actual construction of the trail, environmental review of sections of the trail, and some preliminary design. And we also have funding in there for maintenance of the trail once it's built. So there's funding designated in Measure D for the city of Watsonville to use for maintenance of the trail section in Watsonville once it is completed. Overall, the Monterey Bay Sanctuary Scenic Trail is a 50-mile network of trails. It includes 32 miles that are on the rail corridor itself and 18 miles of spur trails that travel and connect to all of the rail corridor. A majority of Santa Cruz County's population lives within a mile of the rail line. This is huge. We see it as an outstanding resource, and we anticipate huge numbers of users on this trail system. So the 5-year plan supports construction or preliminary implementation of 18 miles of that 32-mile rail trail. The first section of it, which was just the San Lorenzo River Bridge over by the boardwalk, was just widened and completed last month. But there are also sections down there in Watsonville from Lee Road to Walker Street downtown. We just added funding for the preliminary review and design phase of the section from Live Oak to Aptos. And then the city of Santa Cruz is taking the lead on some sections through the city and Live Oak as well. And then through the North Coast, we have partnered with the Land Trust and Federal Lands Highway Program to develop some trail sections up in the north. Within Watsonville, I just wanted to highlight the, Murray Fonts did mention before a lot of these projects that are currently under development in the city. The green lines on here are some of your existing trail network. The rail trail is down there on the lower end of this slide, and we just see it as an outstanding partnership to partner with the anticipated new Lee Road connection to the schools, going across the highway into Green Valley Road over Harkins Slough. On Harkins Slough, and I think it's just going to be a great project. So that's the rail trail portion that we've funded. Now, Councilmember Kaufman-Gomez did mention that the commission has contributed $2.8 million of our Measure D funds that are designated for the trail project for this section of trail, and we'll be supporting your staff in using these funds to leverage another $1 million in grants so that this project can be fully funded. And we've been working with your staff as well as the California Transportation Commission to start implementing some sections of that rail trail within the next year. 8% of the funds, as mentioned earlier, are for the rail corridor. This is for preserving the existing railroad structure, making some repairs, repairing storm damage, repairing ties on the track, et cetera. But also we used some of the Measure D funds to finish our Unified Corridor study, which was completed in January with extensive public input. And now we're moving forward based on the decision that was made as part of that Unified Corridor study to look deeper at the different transit alternatives for the rail corridor, including both rail and bus transit. We are currently, as I mentioned before, doing that alternatives analysis, and we hope to have it done by January of 2021. For the neighborhood program, your staff already talked about the majority of the neighborhood funds are going to cities and counties, but we do have a little bit of funding in Measure D that voters approved $10 million for San Lorenzo Valley, Highway 9, and for a wildlife crossing on Highway 17, and we're hoping that will reduce collisions with wildlife. It's essentially a bridge that Highway 17 will turn into a bridge and have a tunnel underneath it for the wildlife. So overall, the cities and the counties are receiving about $5.7 million a year of the funds to repair their roads, do bicycle and pedestrian projects, neighborhood safety projects. This is completely up to the discretion of the city council on how you spend these funds. And as approved in your last item, you have selected projects to use those funds, and we're excited to partner with you guys on that. Now, the formula for how these funds were split out is spelt out in the ordinance that was approved by voters. Some of the funds go to each jurisdiction based on their population, how many miles of roadway they have, and where the sales tax is generated. And then again, similar to the RTC, everyone prepares these 5-year plans to give the public an opportunity to weigh in on exactly how those dollars are spent. So this happens to be how much is anticipated in next fiscal year. Your staff had a little bit more than this in their showing for 1920 because you had some carryover funds from last year, and so that's where the $1.7 million for this fiscal year came from. And again, as mentioned by your staff, there's a lot of great safety projects that are being done with that funding. In Capitol, there's a picture of, they did some green lane projects there at the highway interchanges. Your city staff is also working on a bike safety project that includes some striping at points that have been conflict zones between bicyclists and automobiles. So really focused on safety in a lot of ways, as well as road repairs. The transit funds, 16% of the total Measure D funds do go to Santa Cruz Metro to maintain existing service, and then 4% are going to Community Bridges Lift Line for their paratransit services. Both agencies are using funds for a combination of service as well as some vehicle replacements and operations facility. So what's next? We're working on project implementation and constructing so many of these different great projects, priorities for the community. We're using the funds to leverage other grants. We do ongoing community outreach. We have a website that provides more information on each of these projects and the programs of how we're using Measure D funds. And we are now working on a 30-year implementation plan where we'll also be looking at opportunities to utilize the Measure D funds to accelerate delivery of some of the projects. And with that, I'm not going to go into our audit, but please let us know if you have any questions. And Director Preston is here as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate the thorough report, and I'd like to open it up to council for questions or comments. Councilman Hurst.
Here's a technical question for Mr. Preston. What was the traffic like coming down here today?
Well, as you can tell, I just arrived prior to this item. It was not good by any means. Google Maps was trying to route me off of the highway. I actually stayed on it because every opportunity I have to drive on that road gives me an opportunity to see some of the challenges that I'm going to have in delivering the project moving forward. So I stayed on the highway. I showed up here about 4:30. It took me about an hour to get here from Santa Cruz.
Thank you very much. That's a great answer, I think. You know, I've been to an awful lot of RTC meetings, and I see the pressure and the criticism that Mr. Preston and his predecessors have received, and Ms. Marconi as well. And so I say thank you very much for making the trip down here today, and thanks for bringing us some resources as well. And I hope that you'll reward those who really want to do something in the county, and that and if somebody doesn't want to participate or give you a lot of grief on stuff, just know that you do have some friends here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hurst. Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that even though I may know some of this information, the public here would be really beneficial because they're not always watching an RTC show. So if they're watching our show, there's a couple questions here. Can you talk a little bit about the mass public transit in the corridor? Sort of UCIS sort of changed it from train all the way to what that looks like, and what the next steps are going to be for people to see what that may look like, or how much longer. You know, everybody's like, we want the train yesterday. That's what you're getting from Watsonville here. But can you talk to us a little bit more about the process in that decision?
Sure. The UCS looked at various different uses of the rail line. It was primarily focused on either bus rapid transit, basically taking the tracks up, paving over the rail line, and putting the buses themselves on the rail corridor to provide transit. And then it also looked at rail transit. Both of those projects were extremely expensive. The rail project was over $300 million. There was significant concern from the RTC commissioners on the price tag. Even though there has been a big push statewide for rail transit in California, there is also a lot of competition for the rail transit money that we could apply for. A lot of that funding has been awarded to the big agencies, the LA Metros, the Caltrain, the BART program. So I think what the commission was trying to move forward with is it really realistic for Santa Cruz County to receive, you know, the $300 million plus what would be needed to subsidize the actual operations and maintenance on the rail line. So they were looking for more information on really what the best use of the rail line would be. So they decided, you know, I met with all of the commissioners before providing my recommendation for the UCS, which was to do an additional alternatives analysis. And I've been working with Santa Cruz Metro to come up with a scope of services for what that alternatives analysis would be. And we have that drafted, and it's going to go to the RTC on June 27th. And to the Santa Cruz Metro on June 28th for public and commission and board input. And then we look to release it after we address that input sometime in July, so that we can have a consultant on board later this summer and do the alternatives analysis. The alternatives analysis and the scope of services that we have put forth was very broad. We are looking to really open the door to see what opportunities are out there, to look at what funding sources may be brought into the county. We are not restricting it to only public funds. We are looking for private partnership opportunities. We are looking for different modes of transportation, to trying to look at the rail corridor and make it into something that's future-proof. There's been a lot of talk about where automated vehicles will bring us into the future. Is there something in this alternatives analysis that could bring that in and discuss that? One of the last deliverables of the alternatives analysis is actually to prepare a business plan. There's been a lot of talk about you know, it's great to do a planning document and decide that, yeah, it would be great to have rail transit in the county. But if you don't have a solid business platform on which to move forward, the deliverability is somewhat limited. So that is something that we added to the scope of services, and we will be presenting that at the RTC and Metro Board Commissions for input. And we hope to complete that plan by January of 2021, and then we could actually move forward with delivering something.
And I think I have just one more, just for the folks to know with Measure D, that even with us moving forward with the auxiliary, we're 2023 before we would see shovel on pavement on Highway 1 for any of those projects that were approved by the voters. Would that be correct?
Well, the first set of auxiliary lanes, we believe we can have it ready to list towards the end of 2020, but that's dependent upon funding. So that's this section from Soquel Driver Avenue to 41st Avenue. So that's our most deliverable section. We will need additional funds from one of our funding partners to be able to deliver that project. But one of the things that they look at first is, does your project have environmental clearance? And it does. And then can that project be delivered quickly? And this one can. The second set that we're going to be looking at, or it's actually two sets of auxiliary lanes, are from Bay Porter to State Park. It's two sets of auxiliary lanes, and we just got approval from the RTC Commission to move forward with the project level environmental document for those two sets of auxiliary lanes that would get you all the way down to State Park. We are going to apply for grant funding for that program as well. I've met with CTC commissioners and put in our pitch to try to get as much funding here as possible. One of the first questions that they asked, because I kind of gave them a big fat number, like $150 million we could use. They asked if our project can be phased, which it can be. So I'm going to be very strategic in trying to move forward what we can, when we can, and continue to deliver projects as we get them ready. This is not the last round of funding. I'm going to put as much forward as possible, and I'm going to deliver what I can get funded, but then I'm going to keep designing and clearing the right-of-way and providing environmental clearance for the additional segments as we go and work our way all the way through. This is being done under the guidance of the programmatic EIR, which included both the auxiliary lanes and future HOV lanes. So we are very much taking a look at when we're designing these projects and moving these projects forward, that we're not precluding HOV lanes into the future. And once we get done with the auxiliary lanes and we have pretty much established a footprint that goes from right-of-way to right-of-way line, the HOV lanes will fit. We will have to do several interchange improvements, but we are very much looking at this program as a long-range program to try to deliver congestion relief to South County.
Thank you.
Councilman Gonzalez and then Councilman Hurst.
Just for the public's information, in regards to bus on shoulders, how's that going to be implemented?
So one of the very interesting things about Santa Cruz and Monterey counties is we are the only two counties that have legislation that allows for bus on shoulders. So we met with CTC and talked to them about bus on shoulders, and they loved it. They thought this is the innovative approach that we would like to see. So we kind of took the ball and started to run with that. We are looking at trying to figure out how to integrate that into the auxiliary lane projects, and Caltrans is supporting us wholeheartely with respect to that. And the way it's going to work is that the buses would be able to operate in the auxiliary lanes on the outside right-hand, farthest right-hand lane, the same as the auxiliary lanes. No really additional cost for that section because we're already building the auxiliary lanes. What the buses would do then would be able to cut across the gore points. So where there's an off-ramp that's exiting, they would be able to cut across and keep going on the shoulder, go past the on-ramp that comes in, and then continue into the next auxiliary lane. So we're hoping that this will really show that our buses are currently stuck in traffic, that the best advertisement for transit is to be stuck in traffic, but not if the bus is stuck in traffic too. So if the bus is moving beyond the traffic that's stuck in the multi-use lanes, I think it would be a good advertisement for using our transit system and hopefully get more people out of their cars and into the buses. So we are working on integrating bus on shoulders into all of our aux lane projects, and we don't see any real reason why that won't be able to get done. And we did pitch that to the CTC, and I think that makes our application for the auxiliary lane projects even stronger.
One more question. In this regard to the rail trail segments, we just got the Lee Road to Walker Street section, and my understanding is that for the portion of the Watsonville rail trail, the trail won't be able to go next to the rail on our end of the county. Is that true?
No, that's not true. The section being designed by the city of Watsonville, segment 18, is right adjacent to the rail line. So
but following into the ag land and the county property where the rail goes up towards Manresa Beach section.
There has been some talk of detouring the trail off in that area and going on the surface streets, but I haven't spent a whole lot of time studying that section and understanding exactly why. But I do plan to continue to work with the city of Watsonville and with the county as additional projects are developed and try to understand why they were detouring off in that area. There are other areas along the 30-mile long trail section where the trail may need to detour, including possibly Capitola, but Capitola passed legislation that doesn't allow it to detour off the rail line. But that would be an area where possibly the trail would have to stop and then start up again, and that's because of the Capitola trestle.
And I bring up this question because in the public's point of view, that they have an understanding that there was a lawsuit. There was one that the ag lands weren't going to permit the trail to go next to the ag land and rail, but yet we're doing it in Davenport area.
I'm not aware of any. Okay, well, maybe Rachel can talk to it.
That way,
she's
that way
been
the
around
public
longer than
understands
I.
what the whole scope and why we're not developing our trail end by the rail.
Sure. So segment 17 hasn't actually started yet, but even on the North Coast, with any project, there are negotiations with the adjacent property owners, and that would continue into the future. Now, when the Monterey Bay Sanctuary Scenic Trail Master Plan was first adopted several years ago, it did identify two alternatives for segment 17, one that's on the rail line and one that diverts onto county roads. There are definitely some members of the community who have made strong arguments about why diverting onto county roads might make more sense for some of them. There's a few more residences along that area. But at this time, the game plan is to continue to analyze both options, and that we have not excluded the option for building a trail on the rail corridor in that area.
And it's also important to note, up in segment 5, we were getting a lot of resistance from the farmers, and we did work very closely with them, and that just reached a settlement with them, and they are now, no longer opposing the project moving forward. So there are opportunities if we put ourselves out there to work with people to try to come up with solutions. We want to be good neighbors.
Thank you.
Councilman Hernandez?
Well, again, I'm really glad that a lot of these projects are happening, and again, these projects really do benefit everyone in the county, whether it's the rail, whether it's the auxiliary lanes, HOV lanes, or the bus on shoulders. It does benefit the entire county as a whole. Although we have a workforce here in Watsonville, which you saw today, that's coming back from work. They reside in Watsonville, but they work in the hotels in the county, the restaurants, the boardwalk, the malls, the box stores, manufacturing in Santa Cruz and Scotts Valley. And that's the commute that you saw today. And folks in Watsonville do that daily. So that's why I'm really looking forward to these projects coming into fruition. The rail, auxiliary, HOV, bus on shoulder. I think that's going to resolve a lot for the county. And I say that because, again, that labor force resides in Watsonville, but it's Santa Cruz's workforce. without them, they're the backbone of the tourism economy. And without them, the economy in Santa Cruz County collapses. So that's why I say that we're in this together, and we got to see these projects move forward.
Thank you very much for your comments. I think you're making one of the best pitches for the Regional Transportation Commission that you could make. There's a reason why the RTC exists, and that's because not all of the problems that county residents see can be fixed by one jurisdiction or another. The city of Watsonville residents fight through traffic in the city of Santa Cruz on a daily basis. And yes, I did see it today, and I've seen it many other times. And it's important to think of regional projects that can be done that are not necessarily in your jurisdiction, but affects the people that live and work in the various different jurisdictions. So I very much appreciate your comments, and I will continue to try to do what's best for the county as a whole.
Councilwoman Garcia?
I first started as a community member giving input to the Coastal Trail at least 6 or 7, a long time ago. And so I'm so pleased that there's at least 17% of the funding that's going to be allocated to complete this 32-mile trail. My question is it going to be just used for pedestrians and used for bicyclists, or is there going to be like benches where people can come and just sit? Are there going to be picnic tables so people can come and bring their families and have picnics? Is there going to be more than just trail?
It really depends on how the project is designed and gets implemented. I think there's opportunities to do that. In segment 5, there were locations where they did put benches. They also mitigated some traffic impacts by providing charging station in the parking lots because there were additional impacts that were that couldn't be mitigated. More people were going to come to the area, use the trail, so we figured try to get them out of their gas vehicle and into an electric vehicle. And one of the problems is there aren't electric charging stations. So there are opportunities to do those things as part of the project. The rail right-of-way is wider than what is needed in certain locations, and I think there are opportunities to include those features in our projects, and we will be looking to do so in the future. Yes.
Thank you.
I just have one question. One, thank you for the report. 2, thank you for the great job you're doing. I don't disagree with the idea that we Highway 1 in Santa Cruz and Mid County need help, but one, I guess my question is, does Highway 1 here in South County need help? And 2, if it does, why are we the last to get improvements?
Most of what I've seen on Highway 1, most of the congestion is in North County. And as very eloquently stated by Councilmember Hernandez, your folks are suffering through that traffic. That is the worst spot. What I've seen here in Watsonville generally is that the traffic is moving fairly well on Highway 1. So I don't see the need to spend the money in Watsonville just so it's done within the city limits. I think I need to look more regionally and address the issues that the people in Watsonville are suffering through, but happen to be in North County and not South County.
Just to add to that also, as mentioned earlier, the new auxiliary lanes are considered Tier 2 on a larger Tier 1 environmental document, and we did look at adding auxiliary lanes all the way south to San Andreas Road and Buena Vista and Larkin. So we are looking on the longer term at how to address that greater area. Now the highway does open up to 3 lanes on either side, just south of that area, but that is on the radar of things that need to happen. It's just a question of how much money there is and what the capacity is, and focusing the funds on the most heavily used, most congested sections, and we're hopeful that will reduce travel times for everyone.
And speaking of the 3-lane section and then, the auxiliary lanes that we're moving forward with, I very much look at into the future, if we are going to be moving forward with HOV lanes, how would I go about it? I'd actually work from south to north instead of north to south. The way we've been working this way, I would want to connect to that 3-lane section and then start building out in the other direction.
Thank you. Any other questions from council?
Just comment.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation and thank you for taking your time to come down here. Greatly appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for making the time for us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we will now move on to item 5 on the agenda, consent agenda. All items appearing on the consent agenda are recommended actions, which are considered to be routine and will be acted upon as one consensus motion. Any items removed will be considered immediately after the consensus motion. The mayor will allow public input prior to the approval of the consent agenda, and I would like to open it up to public input at this moment. So if you're going to address the council, make sure you fill out a blue card, tell us your name, tell us where you're visiting from, and welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Estrada. My name is Adam Coslin from the law firm of Solomon, Saltzman, and Jameson in Los Angeles. We represent, or do work for and represent, CVS and Speedway, as well as other entities which are involved with the sale of alcohol. This comment is concerned with items L and M on the consent calendar. The measure that is repealing the current Chapter 25 of Title 14 of your municipal code and passing a replacement measure which will update the city regulation of alcohol. While I apologize for the somewhat last-minute nature of this comment, our firm has recently become aware that Watsonville is updating its code in this particular way, and we have a couple of concerns about the particular language that is used at several points in the new ordinances. We've conveyed a letter with these concerns to City Attorney Smith. Partners Ryan Kroll and Bruce Evans of my firm specifically have been spearheading this. And we would humbly request, although I do understand that this measure has been a long discussed and much care has been taken in its drafting and negotiations over it, we would request that the measure be put back. We would request 30 days or whatever time the council is willing to give us so that we can confer collaboratively with the city attorney and with staff to allay any concerns over the particular language of the statutes. I'm more than happy to discuss the particular concerns we have in a general way. More specific concerns and more specific discussions I think can be best addressed to the partners at the firm in our discussions with the city attorney. Specifically, we are broadly concerned that for example, the ban on the sale of singles may possibly be preempted by California state law. There are additionally some fairness concerns about the treatment of prior existing uses, grandfathered uses, businesses that have been operating in a certain way for years, if not decades, that suddenly see a change in the legal environment. We would humbly request that this measure be put off for a couple of weeks, possibly 30 days, so that we can address this with the city attorney and with staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Parker.
Something from the agenda? Pull something from the consent agenda? Can we pull? Yeah.
Let me just see if anybody else would like to, from the public, like to comment on anything on the consent agenda. Okay, we'll now close the public input section and bring it back to council. Councilwoman Parker?
I'd like to pull N from the consent agenda.
Okay. Item N has been removed from the consent agenda.
I just have some questions on a couple of the items. I don't need them necessarily to be pulled.
Okay.
If I could so graciously request that we have Public Works just make the comments of those items that I know that are above my threshold. One of them is the aluminum sulfate, and another expense. Bids, same vendor, competitive pricing, any of those things for the aluminum sulfite and the getting Roach Road, the sanitary sewer system.
Great. So you would like to talk about the Ferric and the Roach Road?
Yes, please.
Great, no problem. Hey, Erwin, we have a slide of Roach Road. So Roach Road is a sewer replacement project, and it is, here on the map, is a diagram of the construction site, and it is basically replacing about 1,900 linear feet of existing 6-inch sewer line and replacing it, upsizing it to an 8-inch sewer line. It has come to the end of its useful life, and like many of our sewer lines, it's time to replace it. This one in particular is important because, as you can see on the map, it comes near the slough area, so it's an environmentally sensitive habitat, and so we want to ensure that we don't have overflows in that area, and this project will help ensure that we keep up with the demands and capacity needs of that neighborhood. So it's about a $700,000 project, and the item is to award the bid. So,
And the timing of the project to get started and the length of time it may take?
I believe it'll be started in about a month or so, and I think it's about a 6-month project. So,
Thanks.
Sure.
And then the aluminum sulfate, is that the same vendor? Did it go out to bid? I know that it's an annual thing that we have.
yeah, the aluminum sulfate is a chemical we use for the recycled water process, and in this particular case, I believe we did a sort of a piggyback purchase based on a bid from another organization in the state, and that is a way we can secure the lowest possible price for that chemical. And just for the record, all of the cost of that particular chemical is reimbursed back to the city through Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency. So it's a reimbursable to us, but we still
pass
it through, yes.
Thank you so much.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
it. And I just have one more comment
Yes.
on the consent agenda. Seeing as we're looking to request funds for the mayor pro tem, can we make it a standard that be something that we do for the pro tems in the future, so that there's consistency with the training model for anybody that's moving forward that needs that?
Mr. City Manager?
Mayor and council, that's certainly the intent, and we can ensure that that practice continues going forward.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez. Councilman Hurst?
Just on that same item, on item B, the additional augmentation for training and conferences, I think it goes without saying that the council never has enough training, and there's always a need for more augmentation of, if we're going to go to Sacramento, if we're going to go to Los Angeles and ask for money, we need to be able to get there and be effective. And so we ought to enhance the council members, particularly the mayor and the vice mayor, because that's really what's needed, is to be out there and press the flesh and make the ask to our funders. So with that, I would move the consent agenda.
Thank
I'll
you,
second.
Councilman Hurst. Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Councilman Hurst, seconded by Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez, to approve the consent agenda.
Could I make a quick comment before
Oh,
the
yes.
vote? I just want to thank, my new commissioner's not here, but I just wanted to thank Blanca Baltazar Sabah for stepping up and being a library commissioner. I know the library director is glad that we finally have filled the vacancy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Kaufman Gomez,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Estrada.
Yes. Motion passes. We will now move on to item 6 on the agenda, items removed from consent agenda. Yes.
Hi, I wanted to ask for one moment.
Yes.
I just wanted to note there are 4 items here from our wastewater enterprise fund, and so since we had these items here today, I wanted to take just 1 minute to introduce Jan Guy, who is our new wastewater division manager, and is the reason we have so many new items related to wastewater on the agenda. So, you want to just come up for 1 minute and just say hi? But she has hit the ground running. She just started 3 months ago, and she is doing an amazing job taking over the running of our wastewater treatment plant and collection system. And so I just wanted to introduce you to her just for 1 minute.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I'm happy to be here, very happy to be here in Watsonville.
All right. Thank you. Welcome to the team, and we look forward to your great work. Thank you. Okay, item 6 of the agenda, items removed from consent agenda. We have item N that was pulled, which is the final adoption of ordinance amending Chapter 6 of Title 3 of the Watsonville Municipal Code, adding Article 14 to be used for the recovery of all or a portion of the cost of the annual inspections and education for alcohol-related permits. And should we call our Director Merriman? Or come on down. And then I will open it up with Councilwoman Parker, who
Thank you.
made the motion.
Yeah, I don't know if Susie has to come up, but come on up anyway, Susie. So last time we lumped this, as I was looking through it, I think L, M, and N were all lumped together when we voted. And this time they're all separated out. So I wanted to make comment. I know that the city manager has said we will revisit this in the next year for pricing, but I do want to say I'm really unhappy with this one set fee that mom and pops and the small ones have to pay with everything else. So yes, that's the reason why I'm going to be voting no on this when we vote on it in just a moment. But I just wanted to make that clear in consideration for it. So Susie, I don't know if you have any comments on that, but that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, Councilwoman Kaufman-Gomez?
There was a comment from the public, and it leads us to a question of what materials the city has received in terms of a letter for us to understand either the impact or what we're looking at doing here, or
Mr. City Attorney?
Councilmember Kaufman-Gomez, the letter that he's referring to is on the website. It was placed on within an hour by the city clerk when it's received. It's also was provided to you by email, I think yesterday or the day before. It's from a law firm in Los Angeles.
I'm sorry, I don't recall getting anything.
I didn't get it either.
Yeah, one concern I have is voting on something if we don't have all of the material facts that were provided.
I was told that it was provided to the council.
But I didn't receive it.
And Mayor and Councilmember Kaufman-Gomez, so the letter that the gentleman this evening referred to came in this week. It will be a matter of public record. It is available on the website as well. It was specific to 2 very specific items related to the ordinance that were pre-existing in the past ordinance as well. It was not related to the changes that are being proposed and the focus of the replacement ordinance that the council took action on this evening. We didn't think that it warranted not moving forward with its approval tonight, but of course we are open to continuing conversations with the gentleman and the law firm he represents and his clients with the council's approval of the ordinance this evening to look at those 2 very specific items. If it warrants a cleanup of that, we can bring it back to the council at a later date.
Yeah, I definitely recommend a follow-up to let us know what that's about, especially since we don't have the material facts.
Councilman Hurst.
I'll move final adoption of the ordinance amending Chapter 6 taxation of the Watsonville Municipal Code.
Second.
I got a question
Yes,
on
Councilman
that.
Gonzalez.
Looking at the resolution, I had an understanding that this is the $400, right? I had an understanding that we were gonna, for this first time around, we were gonna extend the payment on it.
I'll ask Director Merriam to come back down.
But according to this, it's gonna be straight up due in July.
The
Your mic.
Is it on?
There you
There
go.
you go.
There's no light that goes on here, so you can't tell. How the ordinance is written is that it's a $400 fee that's due July 1st, just like the business licenses. However, if a business owner comes in and requests a payment plan, we will make accommodations for them.
Okay, well, my concern is because on this resolution here that we're gonna approve, now finalized, it says that you're not gonna do anything except penalize them 25%.
Yeah, this first year, we are not intending to do that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that we're not gonna do that this first time here. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other final questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Councilman Hurst, seconded by Councilman Hernandez, to adopt the final ordinance amending Chapter 6 of Title 3 of the Watsonville Municipal Code, adding Article 14 to be used for the recovery of all or a portion of the cost of the annual inspections and education for alcohol-related permits. Mr. City Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Kaufman Gomez,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
Estrada.
Yes, motion passes. And now we will be taking a recess and going into closed session. I don't think we have any items.
We have no closed session tonight.
Okay. And so we will come back for the 6:30 session. We will see you in a little bit. Thank you. I would like to welcome everyone to our second session of City Council for June 11th, 2019. I hope you all had a wonderful and pleasant weekend. It's been warm. Hopefully you guys are wearing your sunblock, you guys are drinking your water, and enjoying some of this nice weather we've been having. For those of you that would like to follow along, we have our agendas up in the front. We have them available in both Spanish and English. Feel free to grab whatever works for you. And for those of you that are wishing to follow along and need translation services, you can come to my left. There's a table with the green cloth. You can pick up a device, put it on, wear it around your neck, put it on channel 0, and you can follow along. Para todo aquel que nos visita hoy y gustaría, ocupa servicios de traducción, pueden ir aquí a la mesita, a mi izquierda, tiene el mantel verde, pueden recoger un aparato, se lo pueden poner, lo ponen en el canal 0, se lo cuelgan y luego pueden seguir la junta. Y al terminar, nomás si pueden regresar los aparatos, les agradecemos eso. I'd like to start with introductions. So I'd like my colleagues to please state your name and let members of the community know what district you represent. And we'll start with Councilwoman Parker.
Hi, my name is Ari Parker. I am representing District 7, where we have the gateway to the Paro Valley on the east, the East Lake Shopping Center. We also have great schools. We have McQuitty School and Ann Soldo School. We have our senior villages and a lot of wonderful people who live all the way up from Rogers, down East Lake, across to, Beck, and down Delta Way to Bronte, and all the way out to, Arce, Robles, and Cypress, in Vista Montaña, and back out to East Lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hurst, welcome.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Lowell Hurst, and I do represent the 3rd District in Watsonville, which you can see from the screen that it encompasses west of Green Valley Road, and actually all of District 3 is in the 2nd Supervisorial District. That's the Aptos Capitola Supervisorial District, represented by my friend, Zach Friend. And I'm a retired agricultural teacher, and the district encompasses the airport, the hospital, the wonderful Safeway, 3 mobile home parks that I can count on, and Rolling Hills and Freedom School. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hurst. Councilman Hernandez, welcome.
And I represent District 1. It has all of downtown from Pajaro River all the way across to Ohlone Parkway and everything on this side of Main Street. So from the Target Shopping Center, the Starbucks, the parks, this beautiful building we're in today is District 1.
Thank you, Councilman Hernandez. Councilman Gonzalez, welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Aurelio Gonzalez, and I represent District 2. I also represent part of downtown Main Street, from the plaza all the way down to Bridge Street, Front Street. You moved it on me. And the river, the Pajaro levee. I go down to Rogers Street, East Lake, and Beck Street. What businesses?
Thank you. Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Trina Kaufman Gomez, and I'm representing District 6 for the city here. Not only do I represent that particular district, which you can see on the diagram here, I'm one of the commissioners for the Regional Transportation Commission, the Santa Cruz Metro, the Pajaro Valley Health Trust, the PV Arts, Salvation Army Advisory Board, and a couple others as well. So those are some agencies that are part of this community that I'm also responsible for to represent the city. So if there's any concerns about those organizations or you wanting to know a little bit more about them, feel free to reach out to me on what I can help you out on the information of those agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia, welcome.
Rebecca Garcia, and I represent District 5. It starts across the street from St. Patrick's Church on Main Street. You follow it down, you turn right on Clifford. It includes Starlight School, Cesar Chavez School, all the way across Freedom Boulevard to E. Hall Middle School, down East Lake, and then turn on right on Sutton and across the street from the YMCA.
Thank you. My name is Francisco Estrada. I'm the representative for the good people of District 4, and I'm also the mayor for the city. And I have the honor of representing a large chunk of the sloughs here in the city, the high school, PV High School. I have the other part of Clifford. I also have parts of Green Valley Road, Freedom Boulevard, and some of the newer developments behind Target on the Ohlone Parkway. And so now I'd like the city staff to please introduce themselves as well and let the people know what you do for the city.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Huffaker, City Manager.
Good evening, Alan Smith, City Attorney. I give the city legal advice.
Good evening, Erwin Ortiz, Assistant City Clerk. I'm filling in for Beatrice Flores, our current City Clerk. And we prepare agendas and minutes, respond to records requests, and we act as the elections officials. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we're ready, Mr. City Clerk, for item 7, roll call.
Kaufman Gomez,
Present.
Garcia,
Here.
Gonzalez,
Present.
Hernandez,
Present.
Hurst,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Estrada.
Present. Thank you. We will now move on to item 8, Pledge of Allegiance. If we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to give the honor to Mr. DeAndre James of leading us. So whenever you're ready, sir.
And the singing of the national anthem.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. James. We like to have an interactive public, so be wary of that when you come back again. We will move on to item 9, presentations and oral communications, and we will begin with oral communications from the public. So this is time set aside for members of the general public to address the city council on any item not on the agenda, which is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. No action or discussion shall be taken on any item presented, except that any member of council may respond to statements made or questions asked, or may ask questions for clarification. All matters of an administrative nature will be referred to staff. All matters relating to council will be noted in the minutes and may be scheduled for discussion at a future meeting or refer to staff for clarification and report. All speakers are asked to fill out a blue card, leave it at the table designated near the podium, go to the podium, announce your name and your address in order to obtain an accurate record for the minutes. And so we welcome you.
Or Bronte Avenue in beautiful but highly troubled Pajaro Village, Ari. I'm here tonight to speak to why we don't have a gay pride flag, a rainbow flag. It is Gay Pride Month. It's not out in front that I noticed of our City Hall. Pride in Watsonville does occur, I believe, Jorge Guillen said, the third week of August. Why don't we do what many other cities do and show our pride for our LGBT citizens? Because in recent months, I certainly haven't been getting a whole lot of good feelings living in Pajaro Village. And the reason is because we have some very homophobic HOA officers who are going to have to respond to their evil deeds tomorrow at our evening meeting at 6 p.m. I would like to point out that we, as a GLBT community, no, we're not the majority population, but we are a growing population, and we are becoming quite active. And it would behoove all of you to recognize that the GLBT population has certain needs. They're not getting met. So, some of you, I have sent this wonderful petition to form a Santa Cruz County LGBT Commission, as many counties have. And there are a lot of reasons. I won't go through all of them, but I can send you one if you'll let me know by email. And I want you to know also that we hope to, within the next few years, install a diversity center satellite office not far from here on Main Street. And yes, the time has come, folks. We need to recognize that everybody, no matter what their sexual orientation is, deserves respect. Unfortunately, in some, in a few cases in Pajaro Village, that doesn't exist. And I'm very hopeful that the city can help us with the situation, and that an LGBT commission, which would be advising 5 white, straight males who make up our county supervisors, needs to happen. Because unless you've lived the LGBT experience, you have no idea what harassment, discrimination, and homophobia are like. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
That's pretty tough to follow. DeAndre James, PV Health Trust. I come before to kind of speak. I know there's been news, fun news, of the sale or potential sale of Watsonville Hospital. So I just want to come, and before I've been asked to kind of set the record straight a little bit of where we're at and what that means for the community. So on June 6th, the Health Trust was given an official notice of the potential sale of Watsonville Community Hospital by Quorum Health to Horsham Healthcare. The Health Trust has the right of first refusal, which gives the organization the right to purchase Watsonville Community Hospital before the seller, Quorum Health, negotiates any other offers. The Health Trust has 45 days upon receiving this notice to accept or reject the right of first refusal. So what does that mean? The Health Trust mission is to improve health and the quality of life of all people of Greater Pajaro Valley. We envision that happening for every resident as the opportunities are necessary to reach their full potential. We accomplish this through our mission, our vision, by ensuring access to high-quality, cultural, responsive healthcare services and supporting the community in building strong and aligned health systems. We do this through our core values. This is who we are. This is why we got created. This is how we go. So the Health Trust will support the community by listening and fostering respect for all opinions and perspectives. We will operate openly to input from the community we serve. We will also maintain a clear, fair decision-making process. Our decision will be transparent and consistent with policies that demonstrate health need. It will also ensure that the decision-making process protected from undue influence from parties with self-interest, because we're about the community and about the people in the community. So it's not about one person. My personal thing is that we will take the necessary steps to ensure the community has continued access to quality health care it needs and deserves. Our intentions are to safeguard these services for the foreseeable future by confirming that the parties who have expressed legitimate interest in ownership uphold this mission and provide the highest standards available and the resources to support the community. I met with these individuals personally. I mean, I kind of made a little bit of a joke, but it's truth that the community has been engaged for quite some time. The community wants to be married, and it needs to be married to an organization that holds the right and quality of that. So we take that very seriously, and we are looking into every avenue and opening up every door. Am I out? Timed? Time.
You can finish.
Good, I can quit. But yeah, we're looking as seriously to take this on seriously and opening the door. We have 45 days to look into this, and we're taking every day seriously and every moment seriously, because this is a huge decision and it weighs heavily on the impact in the community. So I just wanted to make sure to set that. I know there was newspaper articles that kind of said this a foregone conclusion, and it's not yet. So we're standing in front of that to make sure we, one, which I don't love the word due diligence, but that's what it is. We're doing our due diligence to make sure that regardless of whoever stands in front of that, is doing the right things it needs for the community.
Thank you.
So you're back off. Hang on.
Yeah, Councilman Gonzalez?
I just wanted to make sure you're clear here. You said June 6th is when you had the official
Yeah, June
notification?
6th is when I had the official meeting. It was at 9 a.m.
So
at the
your
hospital.
last day for your final decision would be July
14th.
July 14th?
Yep, and we'll try. We have meetings amongst the board. We've met with boards. We've met with some community leaders already. I had some nice 8 a.m. phone calls on the weekend, which I didn't know people had my phone number, so it's great to know. But you know, we've reached out to some leaders in the community to understand what's going on there. We have talked. Our board has had a nice long retreat about this information. We are actually putting together lists and information and things to go back to ask questions to make sure we vet some of these things, and we're asking for a lot of different information to provide it to us. So it's just getting the ball rolling right here. But be aware that all of the major healthcare players also have been aware and are weighing in on the conversation. That includes Dignity, that includes Sutter, that includes our own county health, and that includes Kaiser. So everybody has been talked to, communicated to, and put on this subject. So everybody's well aware in the healthcare world and the community, so, and the county. So we are definitely trying to do our part.
And I'm pretty sure that also the organization representing the employees.
There is, I cannot speak directly in that due to some of the legalities of that, but I know that they had spoke right to the employees, and I know there is contract around the union, and that's pretty much where I can leave it at. But around the staff, I think our questions around how they support and what they're going to do around staffing, we are definitely asking those questions. But that's as far as I can necessarily get into.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Welcome, Dr. Bilicic.
Well, good evening. I'm Nancy Bilicic, former city council member and currently the representative for Zone 7 flood prevention. And I want to let you know that on June 17th, there will be a Zone 7 meeting right here in the chambers. So as many of you that can attend or want to attend or want to follow what's going on with the levee and the river, come on down, because this will be the place. There was a meeting on Friday, June 7th, and that meeting was with the Pajaro River Watershed Flood Prevention Authority, different agency. That's the one that's with Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Benito counties. And that group was established by the California State Legislature in 2000 to identify, evaluate, fund, and implement flood prevention and control strategies in the Pajaro River watershed on an intergovernmental basis. So they meet probably 5 or 6 times a year. And one of the things that came up is that who's going to pay for this? And so right now we're talking about states. Can our state pay part of this cost? Will they pay? The state share is about 50% of the non-federal costs, and because of our community, it can be increased up to 70% because we're a disadvantaged community. And on September the 6th, I believe that's the date they're trying to work with all of us to have legislative people come and talk. And you know how they have the legislative meeting once a year? The tentative date was September 6th. I don't know the time, but usually it's in the morning. I don't know. Do you know, Matt? Not yet.
Not offhand, but we can share that information with the council.
So that's that meeting was, I thought, beneficial in the fact that all of them will be meeting here on September the 6th, but they're having hopefully a legislative meeting also. And our next Zone 7 meeting is right here on June 17th. So hope to see you at both of them. June 17th is 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. It's an evening meeting. So hopefully we'll have a lot of residents come. You know, we keep talking about this, the watershed, what's going to happen? And we keep, like one person said, we've been talking about this for 20 years. And I'm thinking 20 years, how about 30 or 40? I mean, it's been a long time. But finally, we're making some headway, I think. You know, Congressman Panetta meets with them probably on a weekly basis, the Army Corps. The Army Corps was supposed to give us a report, I believe, in March. And then it was May. And now we're hoping September. When is it going to happen? I don't know, but we have to keep going forward. So we're looking at federal resources, but also state resources. So just want to keep you updated. Thank you.
Thank you for your work, Dr. Bilicic. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Tom Sims, Assistant Chief of Police. I know many of you have been getting complaints already about the fireworks, and we know this is a huge problem. So I want to just give you a very brief update on kind of what our plan is and what we're doing to combat this. Currently, we're working with fire to ramp up our efforts on fireworks enforcement. We plan on putting out some public service announcements soon, probably within this next week, either through social media and or postings around the city. And including in that information is basically going to be how to report fireworks problems in the neighborhoods, and safety and enforcement information as well. What normally happens when fireworks problems are reported to the police department is they go through our dispatch, which is NetCom. They'll prioritize those calls and then dispatch them. Watsonville is very unique in a way that, in a sense that we will always respond to those calls. No matter how small, we will respond. And just because we know how important it is to our community. But dispatch has asked us to pass along, and we'll put this as part of the training, is for our residents not to call 911. It just overloads the 911 system with the reported fireworks calls. So we ask that you call the non-emergency dispatch number, which is 831-471-1151. And again, this will be on our social media sites and postings around the city. And it's 831-471-1151, and that's the dispatch non-emergency number. And then starting around June 27th, we're going to have additional officers specifically assigned to fireworks enforcement. And that'll be about 2 officers per night, depending on what we can budget. But that's what we're doing so far, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about our fireworks issues.
Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez?
Can you remind our public what the fees are when they get fined? People need to know that they're going to be fiscally responsible if they're caught, and that there's an implication.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else looking to address council on any item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I will close oral. Oh, thank you. Bienvenidos.
Muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Tabín Vargas. Vengo de aquí de la Grand Street. Vengo a poner una queja de aparte del Salvation Army, cómo se está poniendo ahí feo. Yo vivo por la Grand, tengo casa allí y todo, y pues no se mira bien que la gente está bloqueando la banqueta todo el tiempo, en la noche, en la mañana, y pues ahorita como a las 5:30 siempre van por a media calle, y por la sidewalk siempre están caminando porque los meten por la Grand a comer. Y yo pienso que está muy feo allí para nosotros. Y puede haber un accidente en cuanto da uno la vuelta para meterse uno, pues va la gente caminando por a mitad de la calle. Y quisiera para ver qué podían hacer. Gracias.
Si nos permite un minuto lo van a traducir ahorita lo que acaba de decir.
Good evening. My name is David Vargas. I live on Grant Street. I have a home over there, and I'm here tonight to complain about the Salvation Army and the way it's looking. I feel that it's basically looking very bad in the area. It's the people that are around the Salvation Army are blocking the sidewalks basically all the time, day and night. And they're also walking right in the middle of the street. It just seems like they're kind of taking over the area, and they're just hanging out there all the time. I'm concerned about maybe a possible accident, because if you're trying to turn on the corner there, sometimes they're literally walking right in the middle of the road. So I'm here to complain. I just think it looks very bad for the area.
Okay, otra cosa también, perdón.
Sí.
Allí fuman marihuana, toman cerveza, todo allí porque están allí en la esquina de la Grand y Union. Allí en una que está una islita que está allí donde está una toma de agua. Allí se la llevan ellos con sus cervezas y drogas y todo, y pues da mal aspecto para nosotros que somos comunitarios de allí de la Grand.
Otra vez un minuto para traducir.
I'd like to say one more thing, if I can. The other issue that I see all the time is that they're also smoking marijuana, they're drinking beer, hanging out by a water fountain area, basically just doing drugs and drinking. And I just feel like it's a really bad image for our community.
Señor Vargas, sí llenó una tarjetita azul con su nombre y tal vez su número o correo electrónico para poder comunicarnos con usted.
¿Esta?
Sí.
Okay.
Sí.
No la he llenado, y también viene él conmigo de allí mismo.
Muy bien.
La llenamos los...
Sí, por favor, si nos podría hacer el favor de llenar la tarjetita, y luego nosotros nos encargamos de comunicarnos con usted para tratar de resolver el problema.
Ok, gracias.
No, gracias a usted. Okay, anyone else looking to address City Council on any items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I will now close oral communication from the public. We will move on. So item 9B was meant to be pushed back to our next City Council meeting. So we will be having a presentation for some of our students who participated in a speech and debate competition. at the June 25th City Council meeting. And thus, we will move on to item 10, public hearing, ordinances, and appeals. Joint City Council Successor Agency and Successor Housing Agency for the former Redevelopment Agency meeting. And we will start with a budget study session and public hearing for fiscal years 2019 to 2021. And we welcome our staff, and whenever you are ready, we are welcome.
Good evening, Council. My name is Cindy Serwin. I'm the Administrative Services Director. I'm here with Mr. Bill Hayes, the Administrative Service Manager and Financier Extraordinaire. We're here today to present our recommended budget for fiscal years 2019-20 and 2021. You'll actually take action to adopt this, hopefully at your next meeting on June 25th. And to clarify the budget, we present a 2-year budget, but you will only formally be adopting the first year. The second year is for information and planning purposes. It will come back to you next fiscal year. Today's actions are only to fix the date, the official date of the public hearing for the budget, and first reading of an ordinance introducing, adding the Department of Technology as its own department, reporting to the city manager. On June 25th, there's quite a few pieces of legislation that go with the budget. I've listed them all here. I'm not going to read through them. We will talk about them again more next time. But these are all the different pieces of legislation that are required to also be approved along with the budget. So overall, our budget for the next 2 fiscal years is in balance. We have, for the first fiscal year, an all-funds budget of $166 million in expenditures. The general fund is only a portion of that. It's $45 million. Fiscal year 2021, the total all-funds budget is $142 million, and the general fund budget is similarly a almost $46 million expenditure plan. Overall, this year, I think the message for our budget this year really is that after several years of growth, essentially since 2015, when Watsonville kind of officially came out of the recession, we're now at a place where we're really starting to have to tighten our belts a little bit again. And this is due to major revenues are starting to flatten out a little bit. We have increasing pension costs with CalPERS, something we've seen coming and we've known has been coming, but it's coming, it's here. And then we, of course, have the continued deferred infrastructure needs that are still starting to, well, they have been for a while, but they're racking up and really putting a strain on us fiscally. And this 2-year budget cycle still includes Measure G, as there's 2 more years left on that Measure's 7-year approval. But at the end of this budget cycle, we are, looking at Measure G, the uncertainty around Measure G and if that's going to be extended or not. So due to that, we are sort of just tightening up a little bit. If you look at our 5-year forecast, you can see that as I mentioned, these 2 fiscal years are balanced. Once you get out to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th year of a 5-year plan, we have a widening gap between our expenditures and revenues. That gap is actually getting better. The last time I presented to council, it was worse than this. And so the changes that we are making and the ongoing operational caution that we are having is having an impact and slowly knocking away of that deficit. But we still have a deficit that we need to plan for and make sure that we keep chipping away at. As I mentioned, our top 4 general fund revenues, are just sort of flattening out, as I mentioned. So you can see that through this chart. Our 4 top general fund revenues are utility user tax, motor vehicle in lieu, which is essentially a version of property tax, actual property tax, and sales tax. Those 4 taxes combined are over half of our general fund. So those are really the movers and shakers, and big changes there are what impacts us. Just a reminder, the sales tax rate in Watsonville is 9.25%, but of that, only those portions highlighted in yellow are actually come back to the city. Sales tax gets divvied up between the state and county and all kinds of special districts, all kinds of things. So you can see of that 9.25%, we get our flat 1%. We have 0.5% that is a special retirement tax that comes to us, and then the 0.5% that is Measure G. I think anybody who's heard me talk in the last few years has heard me say that our sales tax in the last few years has been really driven by auto sales, and so I wanted to show you that this year. So as you can see, that bluish green line, that's our auto sales for the last 10 years since 2006. So you can see they really took a drop during the recession, and then it has come back very strong. It makes up about 25% of our sales tax revenues, and as you can see by the dip that it took in 2008 and 9, that it is a volatile revenue. And statewide, sales tax consultants and people are really seeing automobile sales really flatten out. So it has boosted our sales tax in the last few years, but we can't continue to bank on that same level of growth. Property tax, as I mentioned, is our other major general fund revenue. And this again shows where your property tax dollar goes. And of every dollar of property tax, only 17 cents comes to general fund Watsonville. So just a reminder that our taxes are split up between many different municipal entities in the area. Something that has been sort of, again, pushing our property tax rates and increases and receipts up in the last few years has actually been Prop 8 recapture. So as folks know, Prop 13 sets a cap on how much assessed property values can increase each year to 2%. What happened during the recession is that people can then have their properties reassessed at a lower value. And those properties that take advantage of that then are allowed to increase their assessed value afterwards by market value as opposed to 2% until they get back up to where they would have been had they increased at 2%. All that is to say is that Watsonville had quite a few properties that reassessed down during the recession, and we have been recapturing that. So our property tax growth has been more than the 2% that you would expect over the last few years. We had 43% of our properties reassessed during the recession, and we're now down to only 7% that are still recapturing. So we're getting to a place where we can see we will be getting, again, back to a more predictable only 2% revenue from property tax. The 2% allowable, and then, of course, properties that turn over. Does that make sense? I hope so. So now talking on the expenditure side of what is driving our deficits and our expenditures increase is, of course, CalPERS. This is, again, something we've talked about. I talk about every time I come in front of you. So you can see the green are projected CalPERS costs based on most recent actuarial reports, and the blue is where we have been. You can see that by 2024, we will be more than double, almost triple, where we were 10 years ago. It's increasing by, over $1 million each year, leveling off a little bit, but this again is assuming that CalPERS meets their returns each year. They are now at a place where they're anticipating 7% returns, and to the extent that they don't reach that benchmark, these numbers will actually go up. And I think we're at risk of this year seeing that. There's 2 years in arrears, so whatever happens in the market this year will flow into our rates 2 years from now. So I think it is very likely that in 2 years from now, I'll be coming back to you and showing even a worse situation. The other part of personnel costs that are pushing us up a little bit is we're in various stages of negotiations with all of our bargaining units except for OE3 and SERU, which are closed contracts. We are also nearing the completion of binding arbitration process with the fire department. So we have submitted final briefs and we are awaiting decision. The city recently completed a compensation study and found that on average employee pay was 13% below market. So I don't want to comment too much on current bargaining, but in our bargaining this year, we are attempting to right some of that as much as we financially think we can. The budget right now for those contracts that are in negotiation includes a 2% assumption of salary increase. And then in the case of the fire, we have budgeted for our last best and final offer. Each 1% increase in salaries overall cost the entire general fund about $325,000. So to the extent that we settle with our groups for anything above 2% means we will have to come back to you and show you a new balancing plan, because that would be over and above what we have included in the budget. I think this year, as I said, it's the first year of sort of a tightening of our belt. And I think it will come to a surprise as some people to realize that this budget actually includes some reductions. Reductions haven't been a part of our budgeting process for a couple of years. We have a couple of high-level positions that are frozen that are yielding some savings, including the assistant city manager position. We have restructured a couple of programs that were between parks and the police department, and then we are funding the PAL program with Measure G funds. Sorry, brain fart. Yeah, I think these are the kind of changes that we're hoping to keep taking advantage of. As I said, we have some expenditure problems and some deficits that we need to plan for in the future. And these reductions that we have made, I think we made at times when opportunity presented itself, vacancies were available, there was moments to restructure some programs that yielded better benefits for the city, but also yielded some savings. So we are looking for opportunities every time a position turns over of like, how can we make these reductions in a slow and methodical way to make sure that it is the least painful as possible for city employees and for the community. Any reduction for our city, frankly, is going to be painful because we already work on a very lean situation. But we are trying to make the changes as slow and methodical as we possibly can so that we don't wind up, hopefully, in a situation where we're coming to you and saying we're radically cutting people's budgets. We're hoping to take advantage as opportunities arise. And one of the things you'll be asked to approve next week is actually a retiree incentive program to, again, encourage some turnover, which in itself yields savings going from classic CalPERS members, classic CalPERS employees at top step to new zero-step employees in the lower tiered CalPERS programs. That in itself just yields savings, but also every time there's turnover, there's an opportunity to relook at the operations of that position and around that position to see if there are changes that can be made. Moving on to our capital plan. The capital plan includes over the 2 years about $48 million in funding. Luckily, we on the capital side are not completely reliant on the general fund. The general fund this year is funding about $800,000, and next year we're planning about $500,000. And $500,000 is kind of all that's baked into our 5-year forecast right now. We know that still leaves a backlog of over $18 million of projects, which doesn't even include things like perhaps someday hopefully replacing my building over across the street or some other major. The unfunded capital needs right now is still just maintenance of our current facilities. But the bulk of our capital plan money comes from our enterprise departments. You can see sewer, water, solid waste, and then the transportation. So that would be the gas tax, SB1, Measure D, all of those kind of things. So by department, here's our list of what we are spending. On the general fund this year, we actually, we have a couple years now where we have funded some capital, and there's been a little bit of a delay in the ramp up of some of that spending. So one of the things we did this year is of that new capital money that's being appropriated, some of it actually being split off and being dedicated to a major one-time IT project, the a network security assessment. So that is not a hard and fast capital project as you would think, but it is a really important one-time project that the council has asked for. And so we carved out some of our money to be able to address that need. So some of the other examples, as I mentioned, we have the network security assessment. We also are planning on doing some tenant improvements into this building to hopefully allow some new tenants and some new businesses down here. The Parks Department asked to have some of their capital money reallocated and shifted around to take advantage of to line up their projects better with some grant projects they're going to be having in a couple of years. And so they're actually, due to that, they've asked for a lot of money in the first year for vehicles, which if you see some of our trucks running around town is really important. CDBG money is another really important funding source that helps bump up our ability to get at capital projects that the general fund otherwise wouldn't. So an exciting one on the docket this year is restrooms at the City Plaza. That's going to be funded by CDBG. Measure G is looking to fund the records management system, continuing funding body-worn camera project, continuing the female officers locker room project, and again, focusing on vehicles. In the enterprise and public works side, we have, as I mentioned, a lot of transportation programs. The airport is doing some runway repairs and repaving. Sewer has upgrades, their normal sort of replacement and upgrades. The big project that's on the docket for sewer is a replacement of the Headworks project. We actually talked about that a little bit last year. It didn't wind up going, so this year it's hoping to move forward, and that again is a project that's large enough that it's likely to be bond funded. Water is again replacing meters, pipes, and equipment as such with solid waste and the landfill. So again, as we talk about the future and emerging economic trends, of course, we are constantly watching what's going on with CalPERS and their returns and how that's going to affect us going forward. Eroding sales tax is something that we have to continue to watch. Not just the auto sales, as I mentioned, but it is sort of a shifting tax base based on shifting consumer behavior and the movement to online purchasing. Watsonville has been a little bit slower in that direction than some of the other localities, so we haven't been impacted by that as much. We're also waiting to see what the Wayfair decision and how the state decides to implement that and how that trickles down to us, though estimated impacts is not huge. Our aging infrastructure is really something we need to get after because $18 million of unfunded infrastructure at some point is going to come. At some point, the more you delay it, the more it costs. And then, of course, the uncertainty of Measure G renewal, which outside of this budget cycle, if that does not get renewed, it essentially adds another $4 million to our deficit each year. As you saw, our general fund is about $45 million each year. This year, Measure G is expected to provide to the city about $4 million. So it's 8 or 9% of our entire general fund. So if we wanted to continue the services at that same level, I mean, essentially we couldn't. It would mean an 8 or 9% cut somewhere. As Matt likes to point out, that is more than our entire Parks Department. And then another item that we're continuing to watch and being cautious on is really our cannabis revenues. So you'll see in this year's budget, we are budgeting about half the revenues that were originally anticipated. That is based on current actuals. Of course, it is very possible that that will come up in the next year as permittees get up and running. But we're just being cautious, and we're not, we're just going to wait and see, and if that money actually does come in, if more permittees get going and get in business, then we'll appropriate that extra revenue at mid-year. We don't want to throw departments back into a position as we were the last time of giving them authority to spend and then having to pull back and freeze it. So we're just being a little bit cautious on that. Though Assistant Chief Sims has put together a task force that's really going after enforcement, including tax enforcement. So we'll see what that brings us. And then, let's see, planning for the future. So as I mentioned, when we look towards balancing our future deficit, it's really about continuing to look for ways to deliver services in a more cost-effective and efficient way, and looking at those opportunities as they arise and creating opportunities by promoting some turnover. So we'll be working with the council, and Matt will be working with the council and the community on a new 2-year strategic plan. We're already at that cycle. We are going to be controlling personnel costs, as I mentioned, through a very intentional hiring process, looking at every vacancy and really scrutinizing whether it needs to be filled, whether it needs to be filled at the same class, whether that work can be distributed in another way. We're always looking for opportunities for revenue growth, and a lot of that has to do with economic development in the city. So being able to fund things like the downtown specific plan, which can then in turn spur growth in the downtown. That's really the way Watsonville has to grow revenue right now. Our 9.5% or 9.25% sales tax is the max it can be. We have to grow economically to be able to grow our revenue base. And then assuring that the city's programs are coming close to cost recovery when appropriate. So that would be re-examining our fees, charges for services, and again, where appropriate, we don't want to be charging too much that our community can't enjoy the services, but where appropriate, making sure that we're charging the fees and the charges enough to recover the cost of providing that service to the public. Again, next week, I will come back to you, and we'll be talking about all these different pieces of legislation that also need to be approved with the board. One of them I do want to mention is there'll be a resolution adopting various fees and rates at the airport. The fee schedule that was published with this report had a very teeny tiny error in that we had said that the late fee would be 12.5%. We found out our system does not do 0.5%, so the late fee will actually be 12%. So that has been corrected and will be included with the public hearing notice. And then again, just a reminder, today's action is actually just fixing the date and time of the public hearing and introducing an ordinance to make the Department of Technology its own department. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So at this time, are there any council members that would like to ask questions for clarification or technical questions?
Sure. I know I want to say we're real appreciative of being able to meet with you prior to, so that there's some questions that were already integrated into here, and educating us in the process of what we're looking at here, so that we know really what the meat and the potatoes are about this. One of the questions that I had was the number of eligible employees for an early retirement, just so that we have some idea, you know, what kind of implication this could have if there's this overall sweeping interest of, you know, our senior staff to say, you know, okay, that sounds good, and I just want to see what we've got there.
Right. I mean, it's really hard to say how many will actually take us up on that. But in terms of public safety, for employees that are over 50 and have over at least 5 years of service and therefore would be eligible, it's 17 employees. For miscellaneous, it's actually 64. So those are employees who are over 55 and have at least 5 years of service. So there's 64 that would be eligible. Of course, 55 is young for retirement. So that's not to say that 64 people will take us up on that program, but that's the eligibility number.
And also, one of the other items that I brought up, and I didn't see anything come back here, is $250,000 in the general fund for the Strawberry Festival. That was one of the items that I looked at in the book, and that there were actually, it was the line item twice in one.
I'll let Nick answer that.
So I thought that was like a revenue neutral, so I just want to make sure if this is not the case, we'll let the public know that we're spending that kind of money on this particular festival kind of thing.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Kolobakian, and I'm the Parks and Community Services Director for the City of Watsonville. So the $275,000 line item that's listed as the Strawberry Festival actually includes the expenses for all of our special events across the city, including the Strawberry Festival and other events such as the 4th of July Parade, our Music in the Plaza series, our holiday tree lighting and events such as those. So the festival itself, if you don't include our staffing costs, the expenses are $125,000 and the revenue is about $125,000 as well. So again, if you don't include staffing costs, then that event is cost neutral. But that budget line for it's account 686 includes all of our other special events as well.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, because I knew that we weren't that high on the cost of this particular festival, and we are doing a lot more in our community here, so that's very helpful to sort of balance how that looks and what that's all about. And I'll hold off on my others. I know I have sent some in, and I'll just wait to hear back from you on those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Oh, clarifying questions from council. Yes, Councilwoman Garcia.
We have met and you've answered many of my questions, and I'm sure my colleagues have a lot more questions. And one of them was just asked. So I'm down now to only 3 questions. Actually, one will be for you, and then one will be for Nit, and one will be for Carol. So on pages 49 and 50, and by any chance, the rest of you don't know, we had over 500 pages to read. So we're just on 49 and 50 right now. On 49 and 50, you show charts about revenues, and you list there other taxes. Can you tell us what those other taxes are?
Yes. If you look on page 44, page 44 lists all the other types of other taxes that fall into that category. So that other taxes category includes our property tax in lieu, our sales tax, hotel tax, utility users, and cannabis.
Okay, thank you for clarification. If Carol can come up now.
Ready.
Okay, on page 205. Okay.
I don't have that book.
Well,
So.
I'll tell you what's on page
Okay.
205. On page 205, it has operation costs, and it lists $2,364,975, and it looks like it's a deficit. Am I reading that correctly?
No.
Okay. How should I read that then?
You're going to have Cindy answer that.
So this is just it's an accounting thing we have to do because of the agreements we have with the JPA and how it gets funded in our maintenance of effort. So the library is funded this is all budgeted within the general fund, but then it all winds up actually getting transferred to a special fund called the library fund. So it's sort of a strange accounting presentation that we have to do to meet our maintenance of effort requirements.
And so then I'm to understand you have no deficits then in the library, is that
Right.
correct?
We don't have a deficit.
We
It just
don't.
looks this way.
Very, very good. Okay.
For now.
Can you tell us if it's not, for now, for in the future, may we have deficits?
Well, I'm sure you're aware that there was a change in the Joint Financing Authority agreement
that over in the next 2 years, after the next 2 years, there's going to be a reduction in the amount of money we get from that special library fund that goes into the maintenance of the library from the sales tax monies. And when that starts in 2002, then and I have been assured by Cindy and Bill, who did a projection, that the sales tax revenues will be up enough to offset the deficit that's going to start happening when the city has to start paying back to the Joint Financing Authority the monies that they say were given to us incorrectly for the building of the library, basically.
And you said that Cindy said the sales tax is going to go?
Bill did the projection, and he is assuming and feels very confident that the amount of money that we are going to be losing will be offset by the sales tax revenues rising enough so that we won't be gaining any more money, which we have been doing over the last years, but it will be flat. Of course, there will still be a problem as far as maintaining the library because other costs will rise, but the funding will look balanced.
Okay, so let's say that Bill's correct in his projection, and it's going to be flat, but as you say, other costs are going to go up. How are we going to address those other costs?
That is the problem, and that is an issue that we are going to have to address. Obviously, one way of doing that is reducing services, reducing staff, things like that, or looking for other revenue sources within the city's general fund, which is another option, as well as other things as we are going forward and looking at options.
And we're planning for that already?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Okay. Nick? A few weeks ago, we received word from the city manager that the Contigo program was going to be moved from Marinovich Park to the youth center. And in that communication, he also mentioned that the cost for serving, I think, 36 or 38 students and their families was like $355,000. However, in your report, there's absolutely no mention of the Contigo program. And so I'm asking you in terms of the Contigo program, I hear that it's being reduced by, what was that amount? A few, 175,000 or something like that. So can you tell us more about the Contigo program in relation to finances?
Sure. So as Cindy mentioned, one of the goals of the city across the organization moving forward is really to continue to look at ways that we can deliver services at the same level or at an increased level while creating cost efficiencies and so on and so forth. So as you mentioned, the Contigo program has operated out of the Marinovich neighborhood for several years and has served approximately 38 youth and their families. And again, the program is really focused around serving the neighborhood immediately surrounding Marinovich Park. And the cost of the program has been an annual expense of about $355,000, as you mentioned. Over the years, the program has consisted of a few key components, the first of which being case management for the individual youth that attend the program along with their family members. There's an after-school program components and parent education workshops and a parent leadership committee as well. There were 3 full-time and 8 part-time employees dedicated to the program, again, all with the purpose of improving the quality of life for neighbors around Marinovich Park. Beginning this coming Monday, we are excited to announce that we are transitioning that program over to the youth center and really combining forces with the programming that happens 2 blocks down at that facility. And what we're really trying to do is kind of mesh the strengths and the best things of both the program that currently happens at the youth center and what was originally happening at Marinovich Park as well. By doing that, what we're going to continue to do through the combining of the programs is to continue to offer case management services, but offer that through a different mechanism. Traditionally at Marinovich Park through the Contigo program, our recreation teammates have offered those case management services. But by making this shift, it allows us to offer those services at the youth center, but done through PVPSA or Pajaro Valley Prevention and Student Assistance. And what that allows us to do is to offer an increased level of case management services by case managers and counselors who are professionally trained and equipped to really kind of handle the level of case management needs that our families and young people require. With that change, we'll also be able to expand the geographical reach of the program. Again, like I mentioned, the Contigo program served just the neighborhood around Marinovich Park. With this operational change to the youth center, it's going to allow us to expand those services to young people citywide. So we'll be able to serve a larger range of young people, regardless of where they reside within the city limits, along with their family members. PVPSA will also help us continue to offer those parent workshops that we offered through the Contigo program, and again, do so through their team of staff who are certified in a number of different evidence-based practice programs, which again will kind of augment the level of attention and services that we'll be able to provide through that. One of the other exciting changes and additions that we'll be offering through this big change is the development of a youth action council. So this is a non-Brown acted youth leadership group that we kind of envision being kind of the sounding board for the youth voice in our community, and will also be a resource and a leadership opportunity for young people to really be able to plan and implement events and programs for other young people in our community. So we've got that. We'll also be continuing after school programming like we have always done at the youth center, and that will be available to the young people who were involved with the Contigo program. We'll be offering kind of hands-on transportation for those young people to basically walk them down the street those 2 blocks to get to the youth center, at least through the summer months, and we'll kind of see how that goes, and if it's needed into the school year to make sure that our young people and our families are comfortable with that transition, we'll continue to do so as well. This big change also allows us to kind of increase the kind of coordination that we'll be creating amongst the different youth serving programs throughout the downtown area. So one of the exciting opportunities at Marinovich is that for years our Public Works Science Workshop has always kind of lacked the space that they needed to be able to offer the science workshop at the level that they've wanted to. And so by moving the Contigo program down to the youth center, it allows that entire building at Marinovich Park to be used by the science workshop, and allows the program to kind of expand services and expand the footprint of the actual workshop. So with the science workshop, again at Marinovich Park, the youth center 2 blocks away, our PAL facility over on Rodriguez that is now coming under the Parks and Community Services wing as well, and then soon to be the youth arts center that's going to be happening at Museo Community Center through Kathleen Crochetti's mural art projects. We'll have 4 facilities within walking distance in the downtown core that we'll be able to kind of maneuver kids back and forth to offer a whole menu of youth serving programs. So that's really kind of the gist of it, and apologize for being a little bit long-winded, but there's quite a few moving components of
Well, that was a wonderful description of the program, but my question was in terms of the finances. I don't know where in the budget that program is being financed, and so where do I find those numbers?
Sure, it's all under the youth center budget, or what's called youth development now. It's under Project 691, and it's the very first section that's titled Youth Development. I can tell you the page number.
Okay.
Pull this up here real quick.
Page 231.
What page?
231.
I'm not, okay, yeah, I see it now. Oh, okay. So, in terms of the long list, there's revenues, there's expenditures, youth development. And so, of those listed, so for example, you have trips and tours. Would that be part of the Contigo also? Or which ones would be Contigo program specific?
So the revenue section at the top is kind of a mixture of all of our revenues for our youth serving programs. So that includes the programs that will happen through the youth center, including Contigo, along with our camps and after-school programs and other youth-serving classes that include enrichment programs like music classes, dance classes, and so on and so forth. So if you are looking strictly at revenues, anything under project number 09038 pertains to the youth center and Contigo. But then if you follow, if you head down the page to where it says expenditures,
right.
Under that youth development section, so again 09038, those are all of the expenditures pertaining to the youth center and the Contigo program.
Oh, so they're combined?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Hernandez?
While you're up there, I did have, I guess, some follow-up questions on that. You know, so the funds is for the new Contigo program is going to be part of that youth development. It just, I think that it's a little different what the Contigo program is. I think it's part of an intervention to when young people are involved in any kind of, you know, gang activity, to actually focus on the parents and the resources that they need. And I'm not sure if, because it's elementary students, right? I'm not sure if it's youth development that this program is. It's more youth, it's more parent leadership, parenting class than youth development. Is that the part that PVPSA is going to do now, or is that not on the budget for the city?
Correct. Yeah. So those pieces, the case management component and the parent leadership, or sorry, the parent workshops will be facilitated through a contract that the city will have with PVPSA. So we're currently in negotiation with the organization to finalize that contract. We've got an initial proposal from them, and we have built-in funds within the proposed budget to help fund that contract.
That's not through parks. That's through general fund.
Through the general fund, right? So in the youth development budget that we were just discussing.
Okay, I just want, you know, the reason is I think it's important that we don't let anything fall through the cracks in this transition period, and if we're thinking of expanding the program citywide, I think it's important that we coordinate and that there's some sort of transition period with staff that we have now in PVPSA, because it's important work. I don't know if you remember or have the institutional memory of what Front Street was like before, but it was definitely, you know, a gang-infested area back in the early 90s, late 80s, actually before that even, up until there was a transition when community services went there and they started working with the community, with the individual parents, and some of the work that was done after that with the Contigo program. And I think that that's something that's essential everywhere. I think in Cary Davis, I think in Clifford area, not Green Valley anymore, but different parts of the city that needs that kind of work. And I think that it's critical that we do somehow provide that service. I know things are getting better in the city, but let's not forget how we actually got there, made it better, right? And it's these intervention services that helped out. So are we going to pay the services to PVPSA now? We're going to pay them to do it? Is that what part of the transition is? That's part of the things that you guys are negotiating right now?
Correct, yes. For the case management component and the parent workshops, those are the two components that we'll be working with PVPSA to implement. To talk just a little bit more about kind of the relationship piece too and the transition. One of the things that we've been trying to be very intentional about is to be sensitive to those relationships. Knowing that we have a number of teammates that have worked for a long time with particular families and that neighborhood. We're trying to set things in place so that those relationships can continue. So probably about more than half of the team from Contigo are actually transitioning over to the youth center as well, so that those relationships can continue to foster and keep going.
It'd be nice if PVPSA can do a presentation about what their vision is, their plan, once you guys negotiate this.
So noted.
Nick, is there no is there an option to maybe have some of these services at the other youth center, or is the other youth center not really an ideal space to have parent leadership training, workshops, stuff like that, case management services?
At Marinovich or?
At Ramsey Park.
Oh, so Ramsey Park actually, I think for several years hasn't had an after-school program component available at that site. I think that I'm not sure exactly what year that changed, but it transitioned while I was not with the city. So in between times that I worked for the city of Watsonville. But what we are offering currently at Ramsey Park are our gymnastics program, and a lot of our enrichment programs and classes also are based out of that facility as well. So in terms of kind of ongoing programs and services for young people, it's not something that is on our work plan currently, but it could be definitely something that we continue to explore as we move down the road.
And then I just had one other question for you. In the budget, we have for the rec centers quite a increase for 2018, 2019, and then we sort of have a drop down on page 220. Is that because of the projects that were already approved, the capital improvement projects that were approved for the facility, or is this?
You're looking at recreation centers on page 220?
Yeah, because in 2018, 2019, it was budgeted almost 900,000, and then for 1920, we're back at 500,000.
Yeah. So some of these changes, a lot of that change has to do with kind of changes in the way that we've kind of allocated our teammates or our staff throughout the whole departments. Some of it obviously is related to the $170,000 savings from Contigo. But we also moved a full-time employee from 691 into 686, which is it's labeled Strawberry Festival, but again, that's really our special events to just really kind of make sure that all of our expenses for that line item are in one place. So those two things alone are really kind of what accounts for that shift and change.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Nick while we have him here? Okay, thank you. Any other questions or technical clarifying questions for our presenters? Councilman Gonzalez?
Yeah, I do. And it's just on page 17. And again, we've had some brief conversations on this. But if you look on item, the CWSRF reimbursement, and this is a major revenue analysis that you put together. Looking at this and looking further in the pages on this, and it says various loans for qualified projects of the public works enterprise, but we're having it on revenue analysis. Is it income, or are we eventually going to be paying back this money that's shown here? Because I mean, we're showing budgeted.
I'll actually let Director Palmisano answer that. These are related to the clean water. State revolving loan fund.
Yeah, so I just wanted some clarification on that.
Yeah, I'll let him comment on that.
They are reimbursements or they're loans, and we're showing them as revenue.
Oh, good evening, Mayor and Council. So the loans in question are for two different sewer projects that we are going to be working. One is completed. One is the Manana Lane Sewer Project. It's about a $3 million project. And then the upcoming one is the Freedom Boulevard Sewer Project. And that's what the other low-interest state loan is going to be paying for. So the way it works is we build the project, then we reimburse, or we submit to the state for reimbursement. They pay us, and then the project gets built and paid for, and then we pay back the state at a low interest rate over 20 to 30 years, depending on the particular loan.
And this would be coming out of the
Wastewater Enterprise Fund.
Okay.
Right.
That's what I wanted to make sure that that's where it's coming from, we're not paying it back out of our general fund.
Oh, no.
That's what I wanted to make sure
Yeah,
that
it's
was
very specifically.
clarified.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome.
And one more question. I got special revenue funds. Measure B, sales tax. Can I have? $17. Because I looked for what Measure B sales tax was, and I couldn't find it. So maybe it's a typo, or This is special revenues. It's interesting to find out where we're getting the money from.
Give Mr. Bill 1 minute.
And then just so you can continue to work, still on page 17, on the gas tax grants, it indicates that we have an actual of 9, and of course we're talking thousands there, and we budgeted 765. We're projecting 939 on our gas tax grants, and which are those?
So while we're looking at the Measure B special revenues, I'll let Maria Esther answer the question about gas tax grants.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. We do have a number of grants, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, but we have a number of ongoing construction projects that we have now, and we have upcoming projects as well. Some I can name off the top of my head include Green Valley Road reconstruction, which will start here in the next month or so, and that's on Green Valley between Home Depot and Freedom Boulevard, and that'll be right after the water line gets done that they're working on now. That one, I believe it's almost $2 million. It's 1 point something million. There's another project, and we got STIP and STBG funding for that, I believe. The Airport Boulevard reconstruction project that's happening now, that's almost $2 million as well, and the bulk of that is also grant funding, and that also would show up in our gas tax funding. There's grants that we have for the plan line that we're doing on Freedom Boulevard.
My question here is that because we've budgeted for 18-19, we budgeted $7,765,000.
Okay.
But we projected only $939,000. There's a big difference in numbers there of what we're projecting for 18-19 and what we're budgeting. And then this is on our revenue analysis, so we're just kind of curious.
A lot of our grants are reimbursement, so we pay up front first out of gas tax, and then we get reimbursed there. But
So we also in the city of Watsonville are required. Your charter requires you to reappropriate capital projects and all appropriations each year, which means that when you have projects that were appropriated in years past but have not been completed, they get rolled over and rolled over and rolled over. And so it makes for grant spending look very lumpy. And so what that line item actually is a reflection of some past projects that haven't been completed that we're now rolling over to the next year to allow the department to continue to work on. And that's why it looks sort of lumpy, if that makes sense.
Okay. Lumpy, guys.
It's lumpy. And I apologize for not having an answer right away on the Measure B question. There's so many different measures and tax measures and historical ones. Measure B is actually, that's the library sales tax measure that was passed years and years ago. And so that actually goes back to Councilwoman Garcia's question earlier about where that library revenue is. So that that $3.7, $3.8, $3.9 million, that's the portion of sales tax that goes to the library, and it's in special revenue fund as opposed to a general fund.
All right, thank you.
Any other technical clarifying questions? Councilman Hurst?
I don't know that this is a technical question. It's kind of a general question about revenue generation. We've seen the importance of sales tax, even though we only get about a third of what's collected. We've seen the importance of property tax, even though we only get 17 cents on a dollar. And we know the importance of utility tax as well. But what can this city do? What can this council do? What can the people in the community do to generate more revenue for the city? What can we do to generate more revenue?
Well, the most important thing pressing is approve an extension of Measure G, honestly. That is honestly the biggest thing that you can do right now for the city. But then, as I mentioned, a lot of it has to do with economic development, so I'll actually let our city manager talk a little bit about that.
City manager?
Yeah, we're pursuing that on several fronts, Mayor and Council. One example of that is our planned downtown specific plan project that we're going to be kicking off this month, looking for opportunities to ensure that we are exploring highest and best use of all of our properties in town. We're only 6 square miles, as the council knows. And in the downtown area in particular, we have several parcels that have been empty since the earthquake. And so one of our goals with the downtown specific plan is to create an environment that would allow businesses to thrive and also attract new businesses and new job opportunities into our downtown area. All of those, in many cases, result in an increase in sales tax and property tax values as well, which we would benefit from. The other areas that we've been looking and looking to expand upon include hotel expansion. So we're in the process right now of constructing a 117-room hotel off Lee Road, the Hampton Inn that's going in there. We have a planned Hilton Hotel at the end of Main Street, at the corner of Freedom and Main Street, that we hope to see moving forward this summer as well. Hotels do a number of things. They bring people into town that want to visit local restaurants and craft breweries and shop at local stores, but they also generate a bedroom tax, a hotel TOT tax, and those revenues go into the general fund and also help support our services. So we continue to put a major focus on economic development and look for those opportunities. Part of the challenge, as Cindy alluded to earlier, is many cities for decades now have been highly reliant upon sales tax, and that sales tax space is eroding as e-commerce and online sales continues to grow. Online sales are growing at a rate of about 25% per year, while brick and mortar retail continues to slow. And we're seeing larger big box retailers like Kmart and Sears file for bankruptcy. And that's a model that we don't expect to continue to work going into the future. So it's just thinking creatively around the types of businesses we think will do well and working on ways to attract those businesses into Watsonville.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mr. Hurst. Any other questions for our staff? I just have one question. Do we have any sort of protocols or any guidelines when we use consultants, or how you allocate funds for certain departments when it comes to consultants?
Could you clarify a little more?
It's just that I went through every department. There are different needs for consultants. Some had a way bigger budget, some had just a tiny budget. And so I sort of wonder how you go about, or how each department determines their consulting needs. And then is there any way to measure whether the consultants really brought in the value, I guess, that we paid for when we do hire them?
I think it really depends on the department. being in a smaller and medium-sized city, you know, I used to work for San Francisco, and San Francisco had, it was large enough to have a lot of expertise on very sort of niche boutique sort of areas. And now being in a smaller city, it's really interesting to me because we have to be more generalists. And so we as a smaller city often have to contract out to consultants for sort of more specialty services, or things that, for example, are projects that our day-to-day staff would not be able to take on. For example, I mean, just an example, in the finance department, we contracted a few years ago and had consultants perform a fee study and a cost allocation plan. One, because there are firms that has expertise in doing that kind of work, and two, because it's not something my staff would be normally able to take on. So it really depends department by department on what their needs, what sort of special projects they're approaching each year. Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor, I would just add to that. I think Cindy's description that oftentimes we're going out to contract for very specific, often complex work. And when we talk about consultants, that captures a broad range of services. It can range anything from design services to architectural, to contractors that we hire to haul away our bio waste as part of our sewer operations. And for a city of our size, it's very common to use consultants and contractors to help supplement and augment the in-house staff that we have.
And then my second question has to do with the neighborhood services program. And I don't know who I would direct that question to.
I'll ask Nick to come back up.
Sorry about that, Nick. I thought this was housed somewhere else.
And I'll probably chime in as well.
Just because I've heard from a lot of people in the community that they also liked the neighborhood services program, and I know we're doing good work trying to expand and augment the Contigo program. What happened with neighborhood services?
So with neighborhood services, I think to say that neighborhood services is going away, I think isn't completely accurate, and that the majority of the programs that we've offered over the years through neighborhood services are planned to continue under the Parks and Community Services Department. I think if the council recalls, a year and a half, 2 years ago maybe, the neighborhood services division was moved from Parks to the police department, and I think since then, I think we as an organization have kind of struggled with resourcing the division with the support that it needs to continue to be successful with the number of programs that it offers. And so with the changes, we are planning on moving, again, most of the programs that are offered through neighborhood services back to Parks, and we'll continue offering them under our department. And those programs include our Neighborhood Watch program, our post-incident team or PIT. We'll continue to assist with the neighborhood accountability boards, national night outs, and then a few other of the large special events that the neighborhood services has continued or has historically operated. So I think the one caveat to that is that the neighborhood development program that neighborhood services has offered for a number of years is one service that we won't continue to offer. Largely, I think just kind of due to the fact that over time, I think we've seen that the longstanding, I think, changes and improvements that we've hoped to see in neighborhoods, I think have been difficult to sustain as the program has moved on to the next neighborhood to support. But again, a large number of those services will continue, and we'll be continuing to work closely with our police department to make sure that the police department is adequately staffed with a large number of their community-facing programs, and it will only, I think, strengthen the relationship between Parks and police as we work through these neighborhood services programs, along with the PAL programs that are coming under our wing as well.
Well, it just sounds like Parks and Rec seems to be taking on a whole lot coming up in the next few years, and I just want to make sure that you have the staff to really follow through with a lot of these, continue on with these services that I think are invaluable to a lot of people in the community. And so I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Hurst?
Before Nick sits down, or he could sit down and get back up again, tell us about what the plan is for Ramsey Park, particularly the soccer field. What are we going to do to fund the kind of quality soccer field this community deserves?
That is a good question. So in terms of Ramsey Park, as I think the council is well aware of, we, over this past year, have been working on 3 major planning projects for Parks and Community Services. The first is an overall strategic plan, which is kind of an updated action plan that is tied to our 2009 master plan. We've also been working on creating park-specific master plans for both Ramsey Park and for the Civic Plaza. Or sorry, not the Civic Plaza, but the Downtown Plaza or the City Plaza. And we plan to be back in front of the council on July 9th at the council's regularly scheduled meeting to go through our draft proposals for all 3 of those plans. The proposal as it currently stands for Ramsey Park includes some improvements to the overall soccer or existing soccer field in terms of adding additional lighting and addressing the poor drainage issues that we have had on that field for a long period of time, which causes us to have to close the field for more days throughout the year than we would really like to. And then by adding lights, it'll help to extend the number of operational hours on that field that we'll be able to get out of it longer term. One of the other pieces that master plan is proposing is to take the existing softball field and turn it into a multi-use synthetic field, which would allow play for both baseball, softball, along with soccer. So essentially, we'd have 3 adult-sized soccer fields in Ramsey Park if everything comes to fruition. I think as Murray mentioned earlier, Prop 68 is our park and water bond that was passed by the voters in California last June, and there are a number of different grant opportunities that have been rolling out through the state and will continue to roll out over the next couple of years. And we'll be looking for opportunities through that program primarily to help find grants to support the improvements to the existing soccer field and the build out of the new field. One of the kind of caveats to that, though, also is that a lot of the Prop 68 funds that are coming through the state are tied to a couple of requirements, namely being proximity to other parks, or they kind of have this equation of number of residents to number of acres of parks within a half-mile radius of that park. And then they also look at financial needs. So, the percentage of people around that half-mile radius who are below the median statewide household income level. And unfortunately, because of how Ramsey is situated, one, in terms of its size, it's our largest park facility at 25 acres. It doesn't qualify for those grants under the acreage requirements. And then because of where it sits geographically, kind of sandwiched between a neighborhood with great need with a neighborhood of less need on the other side, kind of behind target, it doesn't qualify under the income levels as well. So we are continuing to look at some of those opportunities, especially through Prop 68 that don't have those 2 requirements. But it's going to present a little bit of a challenge for us as we move down the road.
Well, let the public know what they can do to participate in improvements.
Definitely will. Our survey is still out online on our website, and we'd love to hear everyone's feedback and encourage folks to email me or call me directly as well if they have any particular items regarding any of our plans that they'd like to discuss.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Our survey for downtown improvements is also still available, so make sure to participate on that one too. Any other questions, clarifying questions from Council? Councilwoman Kaufman-Gomez?
It's also a good idea to bring up that we do have a nonprofit for Parks and Rec, and I'd like us to evaluate or have that brought back to council so we can discuss it, because there could be a revenue stream that comes from that for some of these projects that may not apply for some of the propositions that have gone through, it's sort of caught in between kind of the gaps. It's been there for a while. I don't know enough about it. I think that we could benefit from utilizing that as a means of bringing in some community revenue to help offset some of these projects for Parks and Rec.
Thank you. Any other technical clarifying questions from council? Okay, we will now open it up to the public. If you wish to comment on the budget on this item, we ask you to come up, fill out a blue card, your name, tell us where you're from, and whenever you're ready, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Trujillo, Pajaro Village. As a homeowner in Pajaro Village, I pay $4,237 in property taxes every year. I enjoy many restaurants in the city, Target, Harbor Freight, Nob Hill, and pay God knows how much money in sales taxes. I'm very proud and pleased to be a progressive Democrat, and I believe in taxes. And I also believe in the fact that we as a city are experiencing a tremendous change, so many changes. This is not the little town it used to be. And for those people who are still living 50 years in their mind back, need to realize we need tourism. We need the Hilton. Thank God, Matt, we didn't offer a Trump hotel or an offer for him. At least we won't see his hotel in town. And I'm glad the other one at Lee Road is going to be built. We really need to raise, obviously, the TOT again next year, on next year's election. And it's very clear when I talk to people in not just the other areas outside of Pajaro Village, but in Pajaro Village, we need a bowling alley, a really nice one, that would bring sales tax money into the community. Why should Boardwalk Bowl get our bowling money? They're getting it, we're not. In addition to the fact that even though I have grave reservations about adding 16 more places in downtown that are going to serve alcohol, we need the money. I mean, there's no question. People are looking for experiences, they're shopping online, so if we offer more places that offer experiences that they can't get online, and then we have them here in Watsonville, they're going to spend their money in Watsonville. I greatly appreciate the fact that the police department is doing its very best in hiring, and I realize they have a problem with their record keeping. I've asked twice now in the last 2 weeks to see if I can get the FBI statistics for hate crimes against LGBT people in Watsonville, and I still haven't heard. And yes, I'm talking to you, Assistant Chief Sims. I think we need to have that information readily available, because that's what's going to help me get an LGBT county commission. In addition to that, I also want to point out to you, all of you, that because Watsonville is a unique place, and because it was cited by the LA Times travel editor last July for having the most beautiful beaches anywhere around, folks, we need to give people the chance to have an experience of a lifetime and to come to our beautiful beaches. And we need to encourage small operators, small vendors that offer beach experiences at our beautiful beaches. Now, that may not take care of all the difference. I realize we have more problems in terms of PERS, but that's a start, and I thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wishing to address the council on the budget is invited to come up and speak. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Ramiro Medrano. Born and raised in Watsonville. I'm a counselor now at PV High. I want to echo the support for the Contigo program. I think it is a great program. I have worked with PVPSA and with its staff members as a counselor. We are always trying to support interventions and preventive programs. So I want to echo the council's support for the Contigo program. And I'm not, I don't know too much about budget, and I don't know, much about, anything really with the city, but I do know that it's important to support programs like the Contigo program. So I just wanted to let you all know. I also would like to talk about the support for Ramsey Park. As a counselor at PV High, I work with a lot of our students who live on that side of town. And while the youth center here on Maple Street does great things with our youth, and it's at such a close proximity to Watsonville High, I think that's great. I think we're lacking more youth activities on that side of town. And we have the skate park, which is great. It attracts a lot of youth. But with that also comes the lack, if there's a lack of supervision, then we have issues. As a counselor, I hear, a lot about gang activity in Ramsey Park, drug activity in Ramsey Park. And so there are concerns. And I feel, I lived in Watsonville my whole life until recently. And back then, I remember when the little center there was used as a youth center, there was a lot of activity. It was used by youth a lot. And I feel that it provided much needed support for youth, and especially that those adults there to kind of make sure that things are okay. So I just wanted to let you all know that. Finally, I am hoping that I made a mistake and I'm here. I arrived late. I wanted to present an issue in public comment. I'm hoping that it's okay to open up public comment before the end of the meeting today. There are a few other community members here to speak on the same issue. I missed it. I apologize. I also go to the school board meetings, and I am confused sometimes about the starting times for the different. I don't know how you guys do it all the time, man. Hats off. But I'm hoping that we get a few minutes to also present that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else looking to address the council on this item? Hi, welcome.
My name is Lisbeth Garcia. I'm a parent, and my daughter goes to Lamar Elementary. She went there last year, and I feel that bullying is a big thing. And as a parent who experienced bullying with her kids last year, I feel that there should be more resources, not just for the kids or for the kid who is being bullied, but for the, just to help the kids more and to be more involved and for them to have more ways of expressing themselves. I feel that elementary schools are not being looked at just as junior highs or high schools are. And I feel that they should have, because my daughter had no resource in that school, and she's been going there since kindergarten. And I'm here to see, what can I do as a parent? How can I get involved? How can I, brainstorm with you guys to, find ways to help our younger youth to, get better as they grow up and go on with life. Yes, Mr. Hernandez?
What school was it again?
Landmark Elementary.
Landmark Elementary. Well, tomorrow is the best time to come at 6 o'clock for the school board meeting. And I think that's the best place to address issues at school sites.
Oh, okay.
We have no jurisdiction over school sites.
I do think that's the value of programs like the Contigo program.
Yeah, I hear that out, and I actually, this is the first time I hear about it, and I gone to like 2nd Street, the science workshop, and I take my kids to the youth center here and there when they have, anyways. But I think that's a great program, and I am so for it, and I wish there was programs like that for not just, junior high or high school, but actual elementary school. Let's start from, elementary school so we can, stop the obviously the whatever is happening to, to get worse, so.
So if you could just do us a favor, could you fill out one of the blue cards with your name, your contact information, and we'll be happy to connect you with the Contigo program so we can give you more information, and you can partake in these services, and then perhaps also take it back to the schools. Councilman Gonzalez?
Just a quick comment, just to make sure everybody understands. We are reviewing the budget, and that's one of the important things. We're trying to bring more with less money to our community. And so we know the importance of the Contigo program, and we know the importance of not losing it, but we also know the importance of trying to expand it and with the resources that we have. So, and that's one of the steps we're taking now. We're taking it to hopefully to expand the program to reach out further to the community with the limited resources that we do have.
With an agency that specializes in helping those youth that are in that bucket that really need that kind of extra support, and families that need that extra support system.
And I also, you know, I would think as a parent and, you know, somebody who was, you know, a youth, a kid, you know, once, counseling, like sometimes schools only have it like once a week, and to have it like at least, you know, more than once a week, it would help major on the kids. Like mentally, it will help them and how to, you know, express their feelings, and not just having it once a week or whenever they're going through something or whenever they feel they're being bullied. I will feel you know, or I will hope that there will be more.
So your child sounds like she's a perfect candidate for the Contigo program, Pajaro Valley Prevention and Student
But
Services.
there's a lot of the kids who are.
And hopefully we can bring them to the youth center. And as Aurelio said, with the limited resources we have, we will work with the youth. So please make sure to leave your name and your contact information so that we can send you the information and we can keep you updated on where the Contigo program is going.
Oh, I'm also here for the paletero fee thing. What's happening with the paletero fee?
We'll make some time for that, I promise. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you. Any other members of the public looking to address the council on the budget? Okay, seeing none, we will now close public comments. And I'm looking for a motion from somebody, from a colleague, to approve staff recommendation.
I'll
as
move.
well as
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Trina Kaufman Gomez, seconded by Felipe Hernandez, to approve staff recommendation as well as the ordinance introducing amending Chapter 3 of Title 2 of the Waltham Municipal Code by adding a new Article 14 entitled Innovation and Technology Department, making same a city department reporting directly to the city manager. Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez, you made the motion. Would you like to deliberate or make any further comments?
No, I just want to commend staff for really putting this together. We are going through some things that we have to be very conservative about the next few years. We're stretching it further along, which is what we're hearing about some of these programs. It doesn't mean that we're going to eliminate the programs. It means that we have to really figure a way to be as creative as possible to still provide them and work with our local resource providers that specialize in programs that we don't need to duplicate. We need to work together on what money and resources are there for you. So we're hoping that you as a community know that we're not eliminating, we're just trying to make it more efficient and being able to provide as many resources as possible for our community here. So again, thank you, staff, and with what you're doing with our taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilwoman Garcia?
A comment first is that I want to say that I really appreciate that part of the budget report included service level measures and program objectives and goals. That was very helpful in terms of reading the numbers. But my question is, and I don't know when the city manager mentioned this, but he talked about downtown specific plan. And I don't know what that is and wondered how, if any way, it relates to our budget.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Garcia. So to answer the first part of your question, the downtown specific plan is a planning tool that will allow city staff, the council, and the community to take a focused look at the downtown area and look for opportunities for rezoning and looking at allowable uses to ideally move towards a new vision for downtown, allowing for a mixed-use district, looking for opportunities for additional housing, and creating an environment that will allow businesses to grow in the downtown area. Something that I know that the City Council and the City of Wattsville have been working on for many years. And we think the downtown specific plan will be a key piece to moving that work forward. When it comes to what and how that relates to the budget, we have been setting funding aside for the downtown specific plan in our capital planning budget. It is a large effort. In total, it will come in close to about $800,000, and it's a multi-year project. And so as we look out at the years ahead, we have been planning for that cost. We are also pursuing grant opportunities that we should hear back on this fall, because there are planning grants that allow for encouraging cities to look at higher density, look at increasing housing opportunities, and we have applied for grants to help supplement and offset the cost of the plan as well.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Any other questions or comments? Ready to vote? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor made by Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez, seconded by Councilman Hernandez. And that is a resolution fixing the date and time as June 25th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. for a public hearing to consider adoption of the biennial budget for fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021, and directing the city clerk to give notice thereof. And an ordinance introduction amending Chapter 3 of Title 2 of the Watsonville Municipal Code by adding a new Article 14 entitled Innovation and Technology Department, making same a city department, reporting directly to the city manager. Mr. City Clerk, whenever you are ready.
Kaufman Gomez,
Yes.
Garcia, Gonzalez,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Estrada.
Yes, motion passes. Anybody want to say the last few words about the budget?
Good job.
Thank you.
Short and it's tight. We get
Thank you for your
doing.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Thank you for meeting with us and for answering all our questions on the budget. We appreciate it, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Councilman Hernandez?
I'd like to see before our public comments, if we can allow some of the public comments that the folks wanted to make.
Absolutely. Are the rest of the my colleagues okay with that?
Yes, I'll
It's
give them
early
my
enough.
time.
Fantastic.
Happy to.
Thank you. All right, so for those who came in a little late, we will reopen public comments, and anybody wishing to address the council on items not on the agenda are welcome to do so at this time. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I apologize again. Hello, my name is Ramiro Medrano. I was born and raised in Watsonville, and I'm a school counselor at Pajaro Valley High School. I recently had to move to Salinas, California, because I wanted to buy a home, and my salary as an educator did not allow me to buy property in the town I love. Higher prices are kicking out working class people who don't want to live crammed in a house with multiple families, or people who don't want to live in dilapidated conditions, or in townhomes with restrictions on what I can do to my house or how much I can sell it for down the road. Working class people are moving out and more middle class people are moving in. All of a sudden, the demographics start to shift. We're already seeing it in Watsonville. That is not to say that I don't appreciate diversity. I welcome diversity in every way. But when new residents come to live in this beautiful town and start to complain about some of its characteristics, when they start raising rents, food prices, flipping homes, and other services, that is called gentrification. On June 4th, the Watsonville Police Department posted a video on social media announcing a new campaign to target street vendors to make sure they have the proper licensing to sell food or treats such as popsicles, ice cream, chips, juice, candy, corn, fruit, etc. The video was not well received. The overwhelming majority had many other ideas of how the WPD could better use their time rather than what many believed was the harassment of hard-working, honest people. Investigating further, I understand that street vendors must pay a business fee to the city and the WPD as well as fees to the county health department. While I am not against the licensing process that these street vendors must abide by, I believe that street vendors, many of whom take on that work as a second job, should not have to pay fees to the city or the police just to try to make ends meet. Some of those street vendors work in the fields temporarily. They probably make less than $20,000 a year. in their primary jobs, and that's one of the least well-paid jobs in the country. Do we really believe it necessary to make their lives harder by imposing unnecessary fees on them? My wife was a home daycare provider for almost 6 years. She didn't make much money. In fact, we barely made enough just to justify keeping our daycare open. Yet, beside a fee of $66 to the state of California, she didn't have to pay anything else locally. If we can waive fees for home daycares in the interest of having better quality daycares in our community, then why not waive the fees for street vendors? I am proposing the following. I propose that street vendors who sell a healthy option, corn, fruit, veggies, agua fresca, for example, be waived the city and WPD fees in order to make it easier to offer healthy options to our kids and youth. I'm almost finished. I propose a youth committee, something like what Jóvenes Sanos was doing in the past, to review the applications and decide to waive the fees or not. Please support food vendors and keep Watsonville's uniqueness intact. We don't want to become Santa Cruz. We are Watsonville. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else looking to address the council on items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comments. We thank you for being here until this late and for waiting patiently to be heard. Councilman Gonzalez?
Yeah, I just want to, I'm going to keep mine real brief. Actually, I just want to congratulate Rudy Lopez for his promotion. I think he's going to do an outstanding job. He's been a long-standing member of the community, and so I think that's one of the positive things in life that we've seen. So thank you, Rudy.
Yeah.
Want to say a few
would
words?
Chief Lopez like to come and just say a few words? Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. I am extremely honored to have been appointed fire chief of my hometown, Watsonville, that I extremely love and proud to have served in the last 26 years. The city manager has put trust in me, and one of the things that I said to him was that this is my home. I have this community's best interests in mind. It's a wonderful community. I married my wife here. I was raised here, met my wife, married her, had all of our children here, and my grandchildren have been born here. So I am here for the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Lopez, and congratulations. Councilwoman Parker?
I just want to say, not only is he our new fire chief, but I just found out he's been a grandpa at our school, and his sixth grade grandson, graduated on Friday from my school. So, yeah, that's it. It was fun.
Councilman Hernandez?
Again, kudos to the chief. I think it's exemplary that we have homegrown folks here that are department heads in our city because they know the community, and hopefully one day we'll have a chief that's local as well too, maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the line. But that's congratulations. Do we do the public comments right now too?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to invite folks over to a Tales on Trails community dog walk happening next Saturday, June 22nd at 10 a.m. We're starting the trail walk with the dogs at the Nature Center at 10 a.m. on Saturday, June 22nd. And I just wanted to mention if anyone's seen the charging stations over at that Target got the other day. I didn't even know about them until I drove by them the other day. We're I think the first community in the county probably to get the charging stations there. And it's great for folks that are doing that commute. It's a place for them to stop off and charge and hopefully drop a dime at Target or, somewhere there at one of the stores. The other thing is what was it? I think that was it then. I'm not going to mention all the things that I went to. It was mostly the, open streets that was excellent to have young kids. It was multi-generational to have older folks, grandparents, kids, grandchildren, everyone there at the Open Streets event. It really, in Latin America, the whole concept actually started in Latin America, in Colombia, and it's really big in places like Mexico City, Guadalajara, and even little towns in Mexico, where folks, close up everything and ride their bikes and have street vendors and everything happening there. And I hope we continue that tradition and make Watsonville a more walkable and more bikeable place. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Councilman Hernandez. Councilwoman Kaufman Gomez?
Yes, thank you. Our music series in the plaza is going to begin this month, the third Thursday of the month, June, July, August, September. And I don't know who our venue is for this particular month, but it is free for the community to come out to our plaza that's downtown here, and it will be the 20th of this month. So a week from this Thursday is our first of the series. It's become very popular, so I encourage you to come on out and enjoy that particular evening's event. We're going to be in some discussions with the Mello Center. We're trying to figure out a little bit better use of what we can do to work with the Mello Center, so we're going to be putting something together on that order. National Night Out, I'd like to see if we can look to solicit some of the vendors to help offset the costs for some of the locations and to encourage members of the community, your little neighborhood areas, to want to participate with this, because it's a very good event for our area, for all of your neighbors to come out, and you do a meet and greet. So I'm hoping that we can push that a little bit more in terms of promoting that. And then perhaps also knowing a little bit of the lineup of what we're going to be seeing at the Strawberry Festival, so we can put some feelers out there on the promotion of that big event that we will be having down the first weekend in August here down at the plaza. And Pennsylvania, I had a comment about Pennsylvania in terms of the maintenance. I know we just had that paved, and I know that there's a lot of cones that are out there. There's a lot of overgrowth that's coming in, and I'm concerned about the pavement, maybe something falling in terms of settling, and especially if we put all that money in pavement and all of the weeds that are coming up underneath the pavement that's close to the roundabout there. So that's on my bucket list here for you. And that will conclude my remarks. Thank you.
One more little thing.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone has the opportunity to see this Santa Cruz County Summer Magazine, but if they're at your stores, pick them up. They got 3 wonderful articles on Watsonville, one about Annie Glass, one about Watsonville's historic buildings, and the Corralitos Wine Trail here in Watsonville. So pick one up and check out some of the stories about Watsonville.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilwoman Garcia?
When I saw that we were going to give our comments at the end of the meeting, I have learned now to give only one sentence for each of my activities. First sentence, we have 23 students participating in this year's summer in the city program. And at their program orientation, I had them share what their expectations were with their participation in the programs, and they do have expectations. Secondly, 26 students from Watsonville area received scholarships from the California Strawberry Commission in amounts from $400 to $1,100. So it was wonderful to see those students and their families so excited about that support in higher education. And finally, I volunteered and was able to speak to several Spanish-speaking residents about the importance of the census, and we all have to remember we all count, And I did that at the Open Streets event.
Thank you. Anyone else hoping to make some public comments?
Just real quick, just follow up on Councilwoman Rebecca's on the census. Just remember that it's safe, it's important, and it's easy to do the census.
All right. Councilman Hurst?
4th of July is coming up. There is a piece of literature that I think most people have seen so far. Don't blow it on the 4th of July. Never point a firework at another person. Don't experiment with fireworks. Don't use them near dry grass or other flammable materials, and use only the safe and sane state-approved fireworks. Have a happy Father's Day as well.
Thank you. Councilwoman Parker?
And just in saying that, Fire in the Sky is July 3rd this year, as well as our 4th of July parade. And I attended this once. Callahan Park is having, I think it's every Friday, a movie in the park. And that'll start in July, in the beginning of July. So a lot of wonderful things happening. And it'll be cool at that time of the evening as well.
Excellent. I just want to extend my congratulations to all our students who graduated the class of 2019. I want to thank all our teachers, our counselors, our parents for all the amazing work that you've done to support our future leaders. The Strawberry Jam race will happen the day of the Strawberry Festival on Sunday, I believe, and the link is up. Saturday, all right. And I'm expected to win that one. I've already made that bold prediction, so I'll have to train, I guess. And remember, our Complete Streets and Parks Master Plan surveys are still available. We really want to hear from the public and the community, and we want you to lend your voice to the process. And finally, the heat that we've been having the last couple of days is not normal. For example, in San Francisco hit a new record of 97 degrees, shattering the previous record of 88 degrees. And typically during this time, San Francisco is supposed to be 66 degrees. So climate change is here. And so carbon concentrations also hit an all-time high of 415 parts per million in May. And so if you don't have to be a scientist to sort of know that that's not great. And what I'd like to ask each of you here is to remember about our farm workers who are out there, and they're the ones who are experiencing the consequences of extreme heat. And let's make sure that they have good shade, that they're getting hydrated, and that our employers are treating them with the dignity that they deserve. And so I just ask all of you to continue to do your part in fighting climate change. We will move on to item 12, emergency items to the agenda. There were none. And so we will move on to item 13, requests and scheduling of future agenda items. And in gratitude of the people who were here today to talk about the street vendor situation, I'm hoping that we can maybe continue that conversation. Some great ideas were proposed, and see what we can do with that.
Thank you, Mayor. And I did want to take the opportunity to thank the community members that came out tonight to share their concerns. I want to also make clear that the police department's public service announcement around that program was really intended to support our local businesses and local vendors. And we're happy to explore creative ideas of being able to do so. And so let's be sure to connect, and I'm happy to connect the folks that came tonight with our police department as well.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Any other items? Councilwoman Garcia?
Yes, the League of Cities is opposing Assembly Bill 516, which removes the city's ability to tow a vehicle that does not adhere to a 72-hour notice to move the vehicle, amongst others. It has already passed the Assembly, so I'm requesting a resolution to oppose this legislation and to send it to the Senate as soon as possible. However, if the staff says there's not enough time to bring back a resolution to the council, then I would ask the mayor to write a letter to the Senate in opposition.
Thank you. I will.
And we are actually preparing a letter for the mayor's signature because time is of the essence on that bill.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Councilwoman Garcia. Any other items to be added to future agendas? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 14 of the agenda, and we are adjourned, and we will see you in 2 weeks.